Bam, 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 bam. But things are happening. Where's it going?
Bored no more.
Welcome, my dear friends. My name, as always, is Mano Elia. Riding with me, shotgun. My co-host is the wonderful and magnificent Vanamides, Manny, Vanny, whatever you want to call him. What's up, dude?
How's it going, everyone?
I like your background. You switched it up over there. Only I know what's going on over here with that background. No one else kind of knows.
I'm sure at least one person knows.
At least one person knows, I suppose. All right, guys, we have quite the show for you guys today. This is the Bored No More Network episode 5, I believe. It's episode 5. It's episode 5. And we have an awesome lineup for you guys, to, as always. Let's see. The very first show we have for you is Orthodox Family Life, Christina, and she'll be talking to us about grandparents, the importance of having grandparents in your family, in your life, in Orthodoxy, and how that's connected. She's calling the segment Venerable Grannies. Is that correct, Manny?
That's right.
Yeah, see how unprofessional I am? I could just have it in front of me, but I don't, because that's how we do things at SOS Radio. Sorry? Bored no more! We do so many shows, it's hard to keep up. This is the Bored No More Network, where we re-engineer their social engineering, and we provide you guys with awesome content, Orthodox based content. We just get a bunch of our brothers and sisters out there making and creating content, whether it's podcast, music, or whatever, and we line up a segment of shows one after the other and provide you with a whole bunch of, a good chunk of time so that you could be entertained with other stuff other than degenerate stuff out there. I mean, it's there if you want it, but not here at Bored No More. We know this is what we do. After Orthodox Family Life, then we're going to have our dear and wonderful friend, Buck Johnson from the Counterflow podcast. He'll be doing the news. We're calling that segment The News with Mr. Johnson, Counterflow of Ideas and Righteous Propaganda. I'm super excited. Today will be the very first time we have Buck on doing the news with us. It'll probably be an ongoing thing as well. Also, stay tuned. We have a lot more Bored No More's lined up, and a whole bunch of different guests and a whole bunch of different shows. So this is after this Bored No More, it's going to be like a next level show to be watching. And after Buck will be myself with a panel with our dear friends Post Fidem and CYPRN, and we're going to be talking about music, sound, how you make songs, how do you write them, how do you produce them, what kind of technology do you use, how everything's changed, how does that change the medium, how does the medium change the music, the medium is the message, all that stuff. All right. Should we get started, Manny? Before we get started, did I miss anything?
Yeah, you missed your own segment.
I just mentioned that. That's the panel that I have with CYPRN, Post Fidem, and myself. See?
That's my bad.
I'm scared. It's okay. And then tomorrow is Sunday. Tomorrow is SOS Radio. And tomorrow is also my birthday. I don't normally like announcing that, but I'm going to be doing it, because you'll probably already know because of the Facebooks and all them things, but also because it's a good opportunity to get people together on a live stream to chill and hang out. So tomorrow night, SOS Radio will be, again, I'm only using my birthday as a marketing ploy, as a marketing thing. That's all. The only reason I'm using it for promotion, Tomorrow, SOS Radio, my birthday. We're going to be going through my old hard drives that I showed you guys some of that last Sunday. We're probably going through a bunch of those. And I'll take you guys through a journey of some stuff I like, just because it's my birthday and I get to do that. Oh, before we go anywhere, let's say hello to people in the chat. We have our dear friend Antonio / welcome. Mela Forta, welcome. Well, Manuel, welcome, my dear friend. Moldy Apples, always welcomed. Of course, Orthodox Dogface, brother, how are you? Good to see you in the chats. Brody Alexander, the legend, he's here. Christina's clearly here because she's going to be on any second now. Tatiana, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Nadeem, Buck Johnson, everybody's in the chat so far. If I missed you, I'm sure I'll catch you guys on the flip side. And before I bring up Christina, just give me a thumbs up whenever you're ready. Take your time. I can carry on jabbering here real quick because I could see her backstage. That's the wonderful thing. It's not even real backstage. It's a digital backstage. It's a digital backstage. Christina, are you ready? I got the thumbs up. All right, let's do that. Will there be cake? Will there be cake tomorrow? I'm probably not, because I probably don't eat cake, but there might be beer and wine. Thinking about getting a bottle of wine and some beer, lots of reggae music, and all that kind of stuff. All right, bringing up Christina here. Boom. Hola, Christina. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Nice to see you guys.
You too. You too. How's your day so far?
Well, I always get a little nervous before I go on, so I get a little red, you can see, but it'll go away. It's all good.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I still get nervous too. I think it's healthy. It's healthy to get nervous.
And we had a really beautiful liturgy this morning for Saint Nectarios, and at the end we got to sing Agni Partheni, which he wrote, which is probably about 100 years old now. So it's amazing that song is so beloved in the Orthodox world, being pretty new.
It is, absolutely. And also Justin Marler, I can't remember what song it was now. He uses the melody in one of his songs, and it's pretty awesome. Especially when you make the connection, you're like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is.
It's very beloved.
Okay, so what are we talking about today? And how do you want to kick this off? Because you know how we do things at SOS. We just go raw. So it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, so you asked me to speak about grannies, and I was a little bit hesitant, as I told you, because I really don't have grandparents. Maybe I had one that I developed a relationship with at the end, but we'll be talking kind of about the propaganda around old people. And we're going to kind of expand this to all elderly people and our biological grandparents and also our spiritual grandparents and the importance they play. So it's a bunch of details. Hopefully it comes together and coalesces, but we'll see.
Awesome. Just to give a little bit of a background, the reason why I thought this would be a good conversation is because we've had some private conversations where the importance of the yayades and the babushkas all came into play, and how a lot of things wouldn't happen if they were in the room, as well as like information getting passed from one generation to another. That was a very big important part of this whole thing. So we thought it was a good way to show living tradition.
Absolutely.
Because they do carry tradition with them, generation to generation. We pass it on through the grandparents, of course, through the church, of course, but they're always a great representatives for the church.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the monastics and the elderly Orthodox, the more elderly, the better, are really the bastions of the Orthodox tradition. And so if you're cut off from either or both of those, then you're not going to get the full picture, as we'll talk about.
Yep. Awesome. So I'm going to give you the floor. Whenever you want me to come back in, click me. Just, don't worry about being super professional. Nothing here is ever super professional. We don't like super professional. We just like super real, super raw. So be like,
That's
hello,
great.
Mano. I'm ready for you whenever.
Okay. Sounds great, Mano. Thanks.
All right. Have a great show.
Thanks. So hi to everyone out there. We'll get started. I had a little statement that I made to kind of bring this whole thing together. And I was glad that I heard Buck was talking about propaganda. And we're going to talk in terms of grandparents around propaganda. But again, whenever I say grandparents or granny, just expand that out to grandpas, to any elderly people in your life. Okay. So I believe that diabolical propaganda of the last 50 years has conditioned us all to cast aside and despise our elders to our own detriment and to theirs as well. The devil instigates division, but Christ calls all to communion. So reestablishing communion with our elders is one way to heal both ourselves and by extension, the whole world. So we're going to start with the propaganda around old people. So Mano sent a really great chat the other day to a group of us that broke down the word diabolos, the Greek word for devil. And maybe when he comes back, he can talk about that a little bit more. But when you break this word down, it really has two words in it. It's means across and to cast. So to cast away from yourself, right? So someone who separates, someone who causes division or causes chaos. This is really the meaning of the word devil. And as you'll see, this is the recent trend, and recent by the last 50 years or so, of the conversation or lack of conversation even around grandparents and old people, right? The propaganda is meant to drive a wedge between the generations, causing one generation to despise or to look down on another. We can see very clearly through the TV shows of the last, 40 years or so that old people are portrayed as ignorant, obsolete, misogynistic, racist, sexist. We no longer respect them. We no longer go to them for wisdom or guidance. A few years ago, you might have remembered that there was this is probably around COVID, there was a movement to, whenever you went to Thanksgiving, to call out your racist granny, right? So it started there. The next year it was like, well, F your racist granny. And the following year it was just don't go to Thanksgiving. Like, you can't in good conscience go sit with these old people who are so terrible. And so there was a real strong trend there to literally cut you off from your own family. You can also see this in the whole movement to call old ladies Karens, right? Even if what they're saying is true. Now, I know there's a lot of really older, nasty women out there, but again, even when someone is behaving badly in the old world a long time ago, young people never would have said, you're a Karen or okay, boomer. These things were completely unknown a long time ago. And by a long time ago, 50 years ago. And so because of all this and other things that are happening, our old people are now left without the physical help that they need in the world. Our nursing homes are stuffed full of people, right? The quality of care, if you look into that, is extremely low. It's extremely expensive care, but it's not quality care by and large. And the young people are left without the guidance that they need. So here I want to make the point that we will be responsible for how we treat the elderly in our lives. The spiritual laws are at play here. St. Paisios talks about this quite a bit. If you want your children to respect you, to take care of you, to love you when you're old, you have to do that for your parents, for your in-laws, for your grandparents. You can't cut them off without reason. We're not really talking about people who are unsafe or actual abusers, and that's a different issue. But if it's just a normal relationship, but something has broken it is your responsibility to help heal that relationship through reaching out to them. You can't expect to be honored by your children if you don't honor your own elders. And so what does this trend cause us to kind of miss out on? So I think each generation is losing something. If you are old like me, if you're 47 or middle-aged, I'll say like me, and if you remember the old people that we had when we were very young, let's say the people who were 70 years old 40 years ago are pretty different than the 70-year-olds now. This isn't to pick on any particular generation. It's just what took thousands of years to build in culture that was passed on successfully generation after generation is now being torn down, and each generation does not know the things that the previous generation knew. And so I think we have to ask ourselves, why is that? What are we missing? What do I miss as a Gen Xer that my granny had? She was part of the great generation. What am I missing? Every generation has something to offer. So this isn't about saying this generation is better than that. I know the millennials get picked on a lot, but there's actually a lot of really great things about the millennial generation. Every generation has something to offer. And for Christian families, we should be coming together. There should be harmony within the Christian family. This is the natural order that God has given us. It is unnatural for us to be divided like this. And again, if you remember the word for devil in Greek, this is all about dividing people, right? Christ is about communion. The devil is about dividing. The other impact that this has, this division between the generations, is that now as a 47-year-old woman, both of my parents are actually gone. All of my grandparents are gone. So I have nobody older than me from my family. I have a sister, but that's it. So now every stage of life that I go through alone without the wisdom and guidance of a woman who has already been through that. So for people that are not connected to their family, that could even be their marriage, childbirth, which is a very, it's a very beautiful thing, but it's pretty scary if you're a woman having a child for the first time. If you don't have other women there to guide you through that process, it's pretty terrifying, or it can be. We go through seasons of being empty nesters, which we're almost on the cusp of, and you start rethinking your life. What am I doing? This season of my life is now over. Now what, right? If you don't have an older woman to help guide you through that, you're really alone on this. Going through menopause as a woman, going through the death of your parents, all of these large life situations, women have always had other women to help them. And that's no longer the case. We're all doing this alone. So, Manny, if you could throw up the slide number 1 for me. So God did not intend it this way. If we look at St. Paul's letter to Titus, we'll see this quote. The older women likewise, that they be reverent in behavior, not slanderers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things, that they admonish the young women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, homemakers, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God might not be blasphemed. And here you see 3 images of older women who, just look like really stable, normal older women. This is kind of what I think of when I think of a good granny. But this isn't really the image that we normally see of grannies, right? This is what God intended for us, that the women be that the older women be engaged with the younger women, passing on these traditions. But this nurturing Titus granny, we could say, is almost completely gone now. And this isn't really something that you can learn by reading a book. Now, I do recommend that you read the Lives of the Saints. You'll get a little bit of this. I recommend that you read things like Jane Eyre and other classic literature that gives you a window into what it meant to be a woman a long time ago, or a granny. But that's only going to take you so far. What you really need is actual grannies in your life, because what that does is it shows you the ethos of being an Orthodox woman, a pious woman. Sitting with a little old lady we have in the neighborhood here, Mrs. Kalivas, or sitting with my Russian granny that I'll talk about later, is way different than reading about them. It's the difference between reading about your spouse and knowing them. When you're with somebody, when you sit at their feet, you take on their ethos, you pick up their habits. And St. Paisios actually talks about this in his book, Passions and Virtues, that if you want to be virtuous, you need to surround yourself with virtuous people so that you pick up on their ethos. Now, it's kind of interesting. I saw some videos around about how to be feminine and how to be a lady. And I noticed that they take the individual virtues and they kind of make them an end in themselves. Something about being classy, or how to look expensive, or, more of a traditional woman. But that's totally different than sitting with a little old Greek lady who has suffered, who her strength is not in her body or in her beauty, but her strength is in Christ. And she has such humility, and she's made so strong, spiritually strong. It's completely different. You can't separate these virtues or these attributes from what it means to be a good woman from the Lord. And so these things have to be grounded in our faith. When I'm around these kind of women, I'm really humbled. I'm really shown like the lack that I have in myself. I'll tell a little story about this. When we went to Greece, a man picked us up from the airport in Athens. He runs a nice publishing company over in Athens, and we met him, Mr. Podemides from Podemides Publishing, really lovely children's books. So he offered to pick us up from the airport. We got in about 1 a.m. on a Saturday night, early Sunday morning, rather. And so he takes us to our hotel. And by the time we get there, it must be 3 o'clock in the morning. We've been traveling for almost 24 hours. We're exhausted. It's, the time has changed, obviously. And he says, okay, I'll be back in 3 hours to pick you up for not liturgy, but for orthros, for matins. And we're just exhausted. We said, okay, we can't really refuse. So, okay. So he picks us up. He takes us to his local parish, St. Demetrius in Athens, lovely, lovely parish. And almost nobody's there. So we sit down somewhere. And my mother-in-law and I realized later on, like far into the service, that we're actually sitting in the middle of the men's section because nobody was there when we got there. So we're surrounded by old men. Nobody, chastised us or anything. We were just so delirious we couldn't actually think what was going on. And then afterwards, we went and had some coffee with some of our friends' friends. And it was very awkward. It showed me how I don't understand manners like a Greek person, right? Everything they do is so full. And here I'm talking about the older Greeks. You walk past a man and they'll kind of bow and, put their hand on their chest, acknowledge you, look you in the eye. We all sit down at the table and order some coffee, and the coffee is served to the older people first. We all sit there very patiently and wait for the oldest ladies to go. And, it was really uncomfortable because I'm not used to all that. I don't have that in me. It wasn't instilled in me as an American, right? If we all go somewhere as a group of Americans, we sit down and we just start drinking our drinks. Like, we don't wait, right? We don't wait for the older people. And this small thing just showed me how much I lack this kind of being a woman, the patience, and the even when rules were broken, etiquette rules were broken by our group, there was no chastising or anything. It was just they just smiled and still loved us. It was a real image of what it means to be a woman. So I want to drive this point home that you cannot read about this. You have to go find women that you want to be like, or older people that you want to be like. You can't read about this. You have to sit at their feet. And the last thing I'll say about this is that if you struggle to be a mom, if you struggle to be a grandmother, if you're older, or any family position, a father, a grandfather, it may be because you didn't have it. It wasn't modeled for you. It's incredibly difficult for a lot of Americans to fulfill these roles when we never saw them fulfilled. So again, this is where, if I have grandchildren in a few years, hopefully, God willing, I really won't know how to be a grandmother because I've never been, I've never really had a relationship like that with my grandmother, right? I can watch some movies about it or read some books, but it's going to be new territory for me. And it might seem like an obvious thing to you, but it's actually not. Those, family relationships can be really delicate. Really good women know how to navigate these, where they bring the family together. They kind of soften all the rough edges of everyone in the family. And if you've never seen this, if it's never been modeled for you, it can be really difficult. So let's move on to grannies in the life of saints and other cradle Orthodox people. So many holy people speak about their holy mothers and their holy grandmothers and how instrumental they were for their spiritual life. St. Paisios talks some about his own excellent grandmother. His mother-in-law, rather. No, forgive me. It is his mother-in-law, his grandmother. So St. Paisios' grandmother, Christina, that she was the example of an excellent mother-in-law. She was his paternal grandmother, but she had such a close relationship with her daughter-in-law that people would say that she loved her daughter-in-law more than her own daughter. And this is such a beautiful thing. And again, if you go back to the propaganda that we have around old people and older women, we also have that around in-laws. If you say in-laws to an American, it's probably It's probably not a great relationship, honestly. It's something a lot of people really struggle with. And yet here, Christina, St. Paisios' grandmother, was this model mother-in-law for her daughter-in-law, really loved her, cared for her, and they had such spiritual unity that this really affected St. Paisios and his own upbringing. And Christina was actually really close to St. Arsenios and was the rock of their family. If you haven't yet seen the TV show that the Greeks put out, the Greeks in Greece made a TV show about St. Paisios. It used to be available on St. Nicodemus, the Haggarite website. I'm not sure if it's still there, but it was pretty much a mini-series on the life of St. Paisios. And these family dynamics, for me, was really the star of that show. Like, you got to see what it meant to be a loving daughter-in-law, to be a loving mother-in-law, to be a loving granny or grandson. And that's something that we just don't have modeled. There's another thing I'd like to read to you. I read the entire article on my channel. I think it was called something about the value of a pious granny. But this is an article that was written probably about 50 years ago now. I think it might be from the Orthodox Word from Platina, but I'm not sure. I have a printed copy, a Xeroxed copy from about 20 years ago. But this letter is a letter to a priest who on a radio show made a comment about only old grannies being in church, and that people shouldn't worry that eventually, that the young people are starting to come back to church in Russia as well. And it's not just the old ladies anymore. So an old lady writes in, and she ends up saying, it's okay if even the old ladies are the only people there, because they are the ones who will nurture and raise the next generation. And in time, those children that are raised under their care will come back. And so this lady is, this very long, very beautiful letter talks about how her granny helped her to learn about confession. And what really stuck out for me on this was that this granny is probably not theologically trained, but as you will see from this, that when someone lives the spiritual life simply and attends to the basic things in their life, they have a deep experiential knowledge of theology. And so I'd like to read this little short part for you. They're going over the different sins so the little girl can go to confession. So I asked Granny again, Granny, Matushka also named the sin of adultery. What is it, and do I have it? Granny pressed my little head to her breast, caressed my hair, and sat thinking. For sure, I don't have such a sin, I thought, and cast a questioning glance at her face. Everyone has this sin, but you must know how it acts in you. Yesterday, you and your mother went to the movies. You made 2 braids with bows, and above them you put another bow. But why? To be beautiful? Yes. It means that you want people to admire you so that everyone will say, look, what a beautiful girl, what nice bows she has. You only put an extra bow in your hair, but it was done out of vanity. Don't think that I'm against your nice ribbons, but you must do everything within measure. Again, the other day I noticed that while you were drawing, you painted your fingernails with a red pen and waved your hand about, admiring yourself. What was going on in your little head, only God knows. But this also could be a sin. I looked at Granny in amazement. How can she see everything, know everything? So it seems that in your mind I am a great sinner, I cried. What shall I tell Batushka at confession? Just say that you are a sinner, and if you have a chance to name the sins, do so. And so, again, what I love about this is that Granny not only has a thorough understanding of sinfulness, and that we all have all the passions, and that they are expressed differently within each of us to different degrees and in different ways. She's also able to show the child in a very gentle way, the very serious sin of adultery, and to explain it to her in a way she can understand, and also in a way that says, I'm not against your ribbons, right? But we have to do everything within measure. What an amazing grandmother to have, and this is These are the Russian grannies who really saved the Russian church, along with the monastics that were there. But they are really the ones that held on to the tradition and the life that that eventually blossomed again in Russia after the Soviet persecution. So Manny, if we could go to slide number 3. I hope I didn't miss slide number 2. I must have missed slide number 2. Sorry, let's go back to number 2. Forgive me. So number 2, this was a slide I put together to show you some common images of grannies that we see now. The first 2 on the left, you see that these are kind of the grannies that are often made fun of, the Karens of the world, right? Then we have Madonna. Madonna is very old at this point. Some of us grew up seeing Madonna. She was very young and beautiful, and she's, obviously tried to keep on attaining to that earthly beauty, power, sex appeal. It doesn't look so good on a 70-year-old woman, right, as it did on a 20-year-old woman. And below it, we see these kind of wild and crazy grannies that are trying to stay relevant, trying to stay cool, the boss babe. And then down in the right corner, we unfortunately even have grannies that are trying to, much like Madonna, continue on with their sex appeal and the earthly beauty. So I think you can probably see the difference between the first slide of grannies and this slide. And maybe we don't really think about it that much, but the first slide, you don't really see grannies like that very often, right? Thanks, Manny. The second one is usually what we see, and we don't even think about it. And so now let's go to the third one, which is what I call the philotimo-filled grannies. Philotimo is a Greek word that means sacrificial love. And these are the grannies par excellence, and they can be spiritual grannies or biological grannies, right? So we have Yorandi Samakrina here. This is the great spiritual giant under Elder Joseph, and then under Elder Ephraim, I believe. She was the spiritual mother of many of the Yorandisas that are now in America, started different Greek monasteries with Elder Ephraim, including our own here in Dunlap, where I live. In the middle there, you see Elder Ephraim kissing the hand of his own mother, Yorandisa Theophano. He had a lot of love and respect for his mother. And actually, Yorandisa Macrina and Yorandisa Theophano were very close. And they lived together, I believe, in the monastery. We have Saint Sophia, who's a new saint down in the bottom right corner, another modern Greek saint. And then finally in the middle, we have our newest saint in the church, Matushka Olga, who was a wife, mother, grandmother, and saint. And Matushka Olga is interesting because she didn't really do anything amazing. She didn't start monasteries. She didn't have any theological degrees that I know of. She just stayed home and attended to her children and grandchildren and the people that were in her life. And if you don't know about her, please go in and check her out. She, the date of her repose was yesterday. There's a lot of wonderful videos about her, but she's appearing to people all over America. She's called the healer of the abused and broken. She herself was abused. Just an incredible, incredible saint. And what's interesting about all of these people, and the reason why I bring them up, is that each of them left behind spiritual children. So each of these people were formed in a world that no longer exists, a world 50 or 100 years ago. And what they are able to pass on to their descendants is a remnant of that world, right? The Orthodox tradition, obviously. And so if you're looking to be more of an old world person, an old world woman, an old world granny, these are the people you need to seek out, the descendants of these people. And there are still many. You can go and meet Yorandisa Markella or the Yorandisa in Washington, who were disciples of Yorandisa Macrina, right? You can go to Alaska and meet the children are still living of Matushka Olga. Her children, her grandchildren are still living. She appeared to one of her grandsons who was on the verge of committing suicide, appeared to him in a miraculous way. So we've been cut off from these things, And there's only a few people left that I think really have what it means to be a woman, what it means to be an old woman, what it means to be a grandparent, spiritual or earthly. And we have to seek them out, and we just have to spend time with them. So once we begin to see the different roles that old people have played in our lives and in the life of the church, we begin to see it everywhere. Like I mentioned, there was the grannies that really helped to save Russia, raised a whole new generation of people, right? You'll see it popping up in the lives of the saints. You'll see people complaining that they don't know how to do X, Y, or Z. And it's often because they don't have, that tradition in their own family has been broken, whether that's the tradition of how to cook certain food or how to celebrate a certain holiday, Thanksgiving or Christmas. If you're making it up, that tradition was broken for you. And so we need to be aware of it. First of all, be aware of the propaganda around it. And secondly, we need to start connecting and reconnecting with our own grandparents. As I said before, we will be responsible for how we treat our grandparents. And I think we can't, we can't say this enough. Like, if you want your children to honor you and respect you, if you want them to care for you when you get old, you have to do that for your own grandparents. Now, my own granny, I didn't really know 3 of my grandparents. So there's only one granny that I had any kind of a relationship with, and it was pretty strained. She really did not like my mother, so that made it awkward. But I did work on establishing a relationship with her before she died. And it was hard. She had some ideas about my mom that were really hurtful, but her opinions about my mother can't be a barrier for my love. If it is, then it's not love. Like, your grandparents may have some crazy ideas about things. You may disagree with them with a ton of things. That doesn't matter. We're not talking about you have to agree with your parents or grandparents. We're talking about you have to love them. You have to honor them if you want your own children to do that to you. So you need to model it for your children. So this is in how we speak to them, calling them, how are you doing? Can I get, if you're having them over for dinner or something, can I get you a plate? Why don't you sit here? Let me get you a blanket so you're nice and warm. You do everything with love and with kindness and gentleness. It's really hard getting old. If you spend any time with older people, you will quickly know they do a lot of complaining about their joints and their back and their feet. It's really difficult to get old. And God willing, one day you will be old and you want someone to treat you kindly. All your strength will go away. None of us are going to be cute or beautiful anymore. We're all going to be withered away. And another interesting thing about old age I've noticed is that whatever passions you don't deal with when you're young, they kind of come vomiting out again as an old person. It's almost like there's a name for it. I'm blanking on what the name is for it spiritually, but it's almost like a second toddlerhood. You're just kind of an emotional mess sometimes because all of those things you did not deal with when you were young, they come back as you're in the waning years of your life. And so we need to show them great kindness and tenderness because it's a difficult time. We certainly shouldn't be calling them Karens and boomers and showing disrespect, right? And again, I really want to drive this point home that their weird or wrong opinions, even nasty opinions, are not a barrier to your love for them. Like, if that's what love was about, then that's not love. We don't have any love in the world. Your love for them and their opinions about things are 2 totally separate things. Now, what if you don't have grandparents? This was my case, as I said. It took me a while to establish that relationship with her. You can go find amazing older people to be your surrogate grandparents. Okay, so I have 2 of these. I have one American lady who lives nearby and who is a real treasure to me. We just hit it off. We have similar interest, and she's just the sweetest, kindest lady. And now, we've spent so much time together. She calls me her granddaughter. So I want to just tell you one little story about her. She stayed home from church one day, and so somebody sent me to her house with something to give for her. And recently I had been learning how to sew. And so I had a little shirt that I had made, a little blouse, and I had my shawl that I had knitted the year before. And so I show up in my new shirt that I have to show her. And she stands there and she looks at me and she says, "Oh, Christina, it's so wonderful. And I'm so proud of you. You're just doing amazing with your sewing." Now, my sewing is very far from amazing. Okay. She's really laying it on thick. But in that moment, I almost started to weep because I realized that there was no old woman in my life pouring that kind of love into me. You need someone in your life to tell you that you're amazing, not out of pride, but just that unconditional love that a grandparent can give to you. And if you don't have that, you need to go find someone. And the interesting thing is some old people are out there without any grandchildren and they would love to adopt you. So it's just that we need to pair them off. We need to pair off together and find one. And so this is my very loving, affectionate American granny. But I have another granny, another adopted granny who's Russian and very stern. And she is such an amazing woman. I met her when we were working together caring for a different elderly lady. And it's hard to even convey to you what she is like. She must be 80 or so now. She was working a job that was very much below her. I don't want to say what kind of doctor she was because I don't want to give it away if you happen to know this lady, but she was a very high ranking doctor in Russia with different patents for things. She came to America and all she could do was change diapers on old people. And so that's what she did. But she did it with such love. The lady that we jointly cared for, she did most of the care. I was just there a little bit. But the lady that she cared for, she poured in so much love to this woman, where most people would treat this woman who had had several strokes. She didn't talk. You couldn't understand her. She would kind of moan sometimes, totally dependent on being turned. She had a colostomy bag. We had to feed her through a syringe. Most people would put no value on this woman, none whatsoever, especially if they're in a house alone with her where no one would see. But I was in that house with her and I saw with what love and what tenderness she treated that woman. And it changed me. I think I was about 20 years old at the time. And I thought, this is real love. This is what love looks like. When no one is watching, giving love to someone who can't give you anything back. It was a really beautiful thing. I also know that she sat us down once, myself and my sons, a few years ago, and just started telling us about her life. And she lived in Russia during the Soviet times, but she came from a very pious family. And one day she was scared, she said, to go to liturgy because it was a feast day. It was during the week. And she was scared she was going to get in trouble at school, which often happened. And her mother said, go, don't worry about it, just go. And so she ends up not going. And she said this was the only time she ever got in trouble by her teachers for going to school. And after that, she said, I never doubted. And she kind of stood up straight and I went to church no matter what. And she smiled and she's like, nothing ever happened. Like God just took care of everything. Now, we can say that here in America, but for a Russian to say that in Soviet Russia in probably the 40s, 50s, 60s, somewhere in there, that's incredible. Like if you were caught going to church too much as a young person, they just wouldn't let you go to college, right? So amongst other more serious things. So she had such devotion. And again, she was incredibly pious, and she still is now. Now she walks hunched over. She has no strength, no physical strength. But this lady is an immovable rock. You cannot, there's nothing that scares her in this world. She is so focused on Christ and uses his strength that she doesn't worry about her own poverty, her own, body wasting away, right? She's certainly not worried about being, on the cover of a magazine or beautiful or any such nonsense like this. She is an amazing woman. And if you don't know a woman like this, you need to go find one. Because they'll change your life. They'll change who you are. And this is what I mean by you can't read about this. It's not the same as being at their feet. So find the books. Everyday Saints has a lot of these type of stories, but you need to find someone. Better move it along here. We're going to run out of time, aren't we? I want to say, too, it makes me really sad when I see elderly people who are trying to act cool and relevant. And, we really, if you're an older person out there, we really need you to be the adult you need to be. And I'd say this for all middle-aged people, too. Be the adult in the room so that you can be the grandparent in another 20 or 30 years. That's what we need. We need pious, faithful, stable, Orthodox Christians. We don't need more people like Madonna or boss babes or any of that. We need people who are focused on Christ, who can give good counsel to the young, as St. Paul says in his letter to Titus. And so I want to just leave you with the three images again. And I want you to think about, what are you wanting to aspire to in your life? If you're aspiring to be beautiful, if you're aspiring to be, the boss babe or whatever, if that's your main goal, it's not a bad thing to try to make yourself look attractive. That's not what I'm talking about. But what is your goal in life? If that's it, then look at Madonna, and that's where that ends up, right? But if you want to be spiritual, if you want to be a rock for your family, if you want to be kind and loving and filled with philotimo for others, that sacrificial love that we so need in the world, then you have to be an adult now. You have to stop doing childish things now, because there's a great distance between where most of us are now, putting myself in this category, and where I wish I was, and certainly where I want to be, when I turn 70. So again, there's a lot of propaganda out there about elderly people, about what you should be headed for, about what your goal is. And you have to fight that. You have to turn off all of that propaganda and think about, what does Christ want from you? That he's not calling us to division between the generations, that he's calling us to unity and communion. This is really the core of Trinitarian theology, that God is love. God is three persons in communion, in love. And we have to model that in our families. We have to be loving towards each other, regardless of what the other person thinks about politics or anything else. Love and opinions are two different things. And so if we want to heal the world, if we want to fix the world, we have to start with ourselves. We have to start with our own families. And that's our part of healing the world, is healing our own little corner of the world. So I think that's all I have for you guys today. You can jump on, Mano.
See how fast that was? I'm here.
Very fast.
How's it going? That was awesome. A lot of people were commenting very positively in the chats.
You guys are always kind.
No, I think they mean it. People out there are kind, yes, but they'll let you know when things aren't super awesome.
As they should.
I like how you started off with the diavolo, the devil, the divider. That's a good start. Definite.
Yeah, I mean, I again, these thoughts, this kind of the first time I put all this into one cohesive, talk, these different aspects of it. So it probably didn't sound like I was talking a lot about grannies in particular, but I hope people understand that this dividing of the generations is propaganda, and it's diabolical propaganda. It's demonic at its very core, that that dividing, because when you divide, the old people are left alone without care, right? Which will come to us. We're actually the ones responsible for that. We're actually the younger people, that are going to stand before God and say, why did you do that? Why did you leave them with nothing? Right?
It's true. Because that division, it's like across the board, and I guess one of the ways it starts is it's like the main way is to break up the family, and by taking out the grandparents in that equation, belittling them or making them forcing them to act like immature children and all that stuff. What we're losing is that track record from the past, as well as that wisdom that comes with it, the unity, the connection, keeping everyone together. And by removing the grandparents, you actually lose a lot of skills and wisdom. And I think that is the best way that they can divide us and separate us. It makes it easier for like a lot of the examples you gave, like the children of those of those parents to act more like children. So now you find 40 to 53-year-old men and women acting like children, myself too, to a certain degree. So
And
I
we
think
never
that
talk
it's
about
parents.
that. Have you noticed
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Nobody ever talks about that. Why do we have grannies that are just like teenagers?
Yep.
That's not what we need from our grannies.
No,
Not to
at
throw them
all.
under the bus, but it's like that for a reason. But we need to take this seriously. So if you're a middle-aged person, you need to be acting like a middle-aged person so that when you're a granny or grandpa, because the young people need us actually. So I was
Absolutely.
hoping you would tell us about your own grandfather and how
Sure.
he helped you come back. I saved that.
Sure. It was, everyone's kind of heard the story before a couple of times. I'm probably going to put out a clip about it to add to this episode after I clip this. That episode with Father Turbo, that moment where he brings up my grandfather. I had a close relationship with my grandfather. He lived in Cyprus. I lived in Canada. But whenever we saw each other, yes, he's my grandfather, so we clicked, but we super clicked, if that makes any sense. Like there's certain people you click with a little bit better than others. He's my namesake. We have a lot in common personality-wise, so we clicked early on. So I didn't spend a lot of time with him, but the time I did spend with him was extremely impactful and completely the reason why I'm back to Orthodoxy. I'm pretty sure. I'm sure God would have found other ways as well, but just his way of viewing church life was very different than anyone I can really, other than saints, I can really see, meaning that there was no distinction between life and the faith. They're intertwined, which is common in Greece and Cyprus, especially for his generation. But for him, it was even a bigger thing. So he would whisper, like I've mentioned in the interview, all the time. And I didn't know what he would whisper. He'd always have his hands behind his back and he'd walk and he would just do this whispering thing. I did consider, is he kind of nuts? Like when I was younger, I was like, is he one of those people? Is he special? And one day I just kind of built up the courage and I just asked him Papu, why do you do that whispering, whatever? And he's like, I'm saying a little prayer, my son. I'm saying a little prayer, my son. So I didn't really know about the Jesus prayer really back then. Like I did, but I didn't. It's that Greek thing where we don't make distinctions. It's just something we say, right? You don't, Kyrie eleison, you say it all the time, right?
But you didn't know, you didn't need an intellectual explanation for it. You needed to see your grandfather doing it.
Exactly.
And the grace that he was attracting by saying the prayer, you partook in that from being around him.
Absolutely.
And your grandfather was, probably an adult when it was time to be an adult, right?
Yeah. He was an adult at 15.
Yeah, that's what we need from people. And it's pretty cool to be an adult. Like teenagerhood is not that great. Like we all went through it. It's rough. Like move on, be an adult in your life.
It's so true. But grandparents are very important. Considering our past and keeping that on our mind and learning about the past is it's cliche to say, but you'll repeat the future. You'll repeat it if you don't learn from the past. But I think that's true, and I think a lot of the things you brought up, that wisdom, chilling and hanging out with a bunch of yayadas and babushkas, is next level different than anything you could possibly describe to someone unless they've experienced it. And I like the stories you gave because I know specific older ladies that I've experienced a lot of those moments that you're talking about. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, they look physically weak, but they are some of the strongest spiritual people you'll ever meet,
Oh, yeah.
And so that's maybe why if they're in your parish and you're not seeing them, that might be why, because they're hunched over and they're weak and they can't do much physically. But if you just go and sit with them in coffee hour instead of with all the cool kids, then, you're going to learn something.
I think your experience of, sorry to interrupt you there, because I think it's something important to say. I think your experience of not having grandparents, the way you described it, but then finding the value in it and actually looking for a surrogate version of it, there's a lot of value in that. And I don't think people should look at that as like second best. You know what I'm saying? Because someone can have grandparents and maybe they're not super awesome. You know what I'm saying? I think you'd be better off that way. And I think it's something that we should all kind of keep in mind. Even if you have grandparents or whatever, go out and talk to the old people, because they can share
That's
knowledge that you cannot even believe is in their minds.
That's right. But even if your own personal grandparents aren't super awesome, as long as they're,
Yes.
safe people, and I had grandparents that were not safe people. That's why I didn't, wasn't around them as a child.
Yep.
But as long as they're safe people, if they're not super awesome, it's still your responsibility to love them and to have a relationship with them, actually. But yeah, go ahead and find some pious grannies as well. So they're, I was trying to show there are kind of different levels to this, right?
Yep.
But your own grandparents, you do have a responsibility to them.
Totally. You absolutely do. And it's like, I remember, I'm old enough to remember when old age homes weren't a thing.
That's right.
Where if you put your, like, I remember Greeks, Italians in my neighborhoods talking about, they put the old person in that insane asylum, and that's what they would call it. And then I remember it was like something that would not be considered by, I'll specifically talk about Southern Europeans because that's who I knew. They would never consider that, but now they're all doing it.
Right.
It's changed.
And I think this is a great travesty. I'll refrain from saying sin, but I think it does border on sinful
I think so.
to abandon your grandparents is absolutely sinful, or your parents. Like, and again, I've had troubled family. I understand it doesn't mean you have to live with them if there's some real issues there, but you are responsible for them still. And for me, I put it up there with pretty close to abortion. That how can we say we're loving if we kill our children and we abandon our old people? And this will all come back to us. We don't get out of this. Like, we are responsible for this. So, and the whole idea of having grandparents and stable extended family, it solves a ton of issues. This is why if you find me in the chats and different talks, you'll often see I'll say things like, that's because you had a granny, or that's because you didn't have a granny, or you need a granny. Like, it actually plays into a ton of different issues that people are trying to solve.
Absolutely.
But this is a completely forgotten piece of it, I believe.
I think you're 100% correct on that, because there's a lot of things people wouldn't do in front of their grandparents or elderly people. They'll just give you that look, and you're kind of like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was talking to my 16-year-old son about the chats, and they get kind of wild. And I was like, maybe we can fix the internet by putting some yayas in the chats and straightening everybody out.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Okay, Christina. Well, thank you so very much for this amazing segment. You put a lot of time and effort into that, so we really appreciate that, and always love hearing everything you have to put out. And everyone in the chat always loves you and adores you. So thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thanks everyone. Forgive my awkwardness at times and my lack of words. But hopefully you got something from it. So.
Oh, come on! It's boring no more. It's all like that. No, you did great. You did great.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you later.
Adios. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So we've got to get ready for our next segment. Before we do, I think Christina brought up a lot of amazing points there that I think are worth kind of repeating and rewatching that episode, because grandparents are important. Just killing off the past and by getting rid of grandparents or getting rid of that entire generation, whether it's even tradesmen. Like if you talk to like old tradesmen who had like an old guy on the crew, that old guy will teach you stuff that the new guy just doesn't know, or like an entire lifetime of experience is in that older person. And I think it's important that we kind of keep that in mind, consider that. I will quote Dave Matthews. Forgive me for all those that will laugh at this statement, but I think it's a great lyric in one of his songs, that progress took away what forever took to find. Progress took away what forever took to find. I think it's important that we honor our history, our grandparents, and in particular, when it comes to orthodoxy and all of that, they can teach you some stuff that's legit, like really, really, really important, and they'll keep you on the straight and narrow. Okay, that being said, we now have our dear friend Buck Johnson. He'll be coming on in a second. He'll be giving us the news from his perspective, from his world. And I know that there's a lot to talk about. It has been an interesting week in politics, an interesting week in world affairs. Well, it's been an interesting year for all that stuff. So I'm sure we're going to be hearing some interesting takes, segments. And this segment is something that we're probably going to be doing a lot more of moving down the road. I'll bring on my dear friend Buck Johnson right now. Let's see, Manny, are we ready for Buck, or should we?
We need a second.
I think you're
to go over some
muted.
things.
I think you're muted.
It's not on my end.
No, you're not. Okay. Sorry. I interrupted you. Go for it. What do we got?
So first, we're gonna thank Nadim for membership.
Thank you, Nadim.
And then Tatiana as well.
Thank you, Tatiana. Much obliged. Appreciate the support and love.
Just so everyone knows, any donations you guys send in, a portion of it goes to the creators that show up here today.
That's right.
So, yeah. Keep on keeping on.
Do we have a splash or anything of the sort?
I'm going to hit him with this one.
Hit him with that one.
You are watching the Board No More Network. Please stay tuned for relevant information regarding the following. Thank you for your patience and enjoy the rest of the show.
My dear brother Buck, how are you, sir? Oh, I think he's on mute. 1 second, I think you're muted. 1 second. Manny, can you unmute him?
You can't. It's on his side.
Oh, Buck, you're muted on your end.
I'm new to this podcasting.
What's going on, brother? How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. You're having a fun Saturday. It's all over the place as usual.
Yeah, this is fun. You're going to make me or allow me to speak on my own?
Well, it's really up to you. I'm gonna suggest it if you want. I think you could do it.
I think so. I'm just I'm used to being the interviewer.
Correct.
And so now I just get to rant, and people are going to go, geez, he goes off on some weird tangents.
I love your tangents. I've seen you on a couple of interviews where you've been interviewed. Well, obviously, you know that. I've told you. And I love your rants. I think you should do a lot more of them, which is why I wanted to suggest this whole thing to you.
Well, thanks. A few friends close to me have told me the same thing, which I'm like, well, you can hear me rant without seeing it on a screen, but
Well, I think there's some value to seeing it on the screen. Because even there's been times where you've said things where I'm like, I don't know if I agree with you, and then all of a sudden you'll break it down, and I'll be like, I didn't think of it that way. That makes a lot of sense. So you do have a way of doing that, and I think it's something that we need more of in this world. I think it's wonderful for all of us to disagree, as long as it's done properly and healthy. And it's even more wonderful when the other person that disagrees with you has an open ear to listen.
That's rare,
isn't it? How unfortunate is that?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I've been seeing this week that if you disagree with someone's social justice take, that they shouldn't be tolerant of you.
I've
it's
heard
called
this
the
too.
paradox of tolerance. This is a new thing. I don't know how new it is, but now it's very trendy among the losers of the left.
Yeah, and I'm experiencing it on a multiple different levels.
Yeah, you are.
So as you know, I'm just trying to understand what's up with people. Like, you should have your opinion, but you should be able to express that opinion and then have someone rebuttal and give you a totally different perspective on it. Like, for example, if I was American, I probably would have voted for the very first time in my entire life. And it was based on a couple of things you had said and a few other key individuals. And like I said, if I was American, I probably would have voted for the first time in my entire life. And it would not have been for that cackling, crazy cracking.
Right. Well, you would have been fortunate. That is the first election, this one that just passed, in my entire adult life, where the person I voted for won.
Awesome.
It's a weird experience. It's kind of strange.
That is. So now I can figure out who you voted for every other time.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think he won last time, but that's a whole other story. Then prior to that, it was libertarian, straight ticket every single election.
Yeah. The good old Ron Paul era.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Are you ready to rock and roll? Do you need anything from me?
Your love and support.
You always got that, brother. You always got that. Have a good show, my friend. It's all yours. If you need anything, just say it. We're raw. We're rough, rugged, and raw. You know how it is, punk rock.
Yeah, I love it. What do I do when I'm done? How do you
Just
do I
just say,
go
Mano,
out?
what's up? I'm coming. Or
Okay.
just call me. Just call me. I'll just pop on. I'll pop up. There'll be a 5-minute clock on the corner if it gets close to the end. So, but if you are done before that, just call me up and we'll have a chat.
Okay, cool. I'm interviewing. This is a promo for the next episode of my show. I'm interviewing Matt Erickson Kingpilled in 50 minutes for
Okay.
the episode. So I'll be done before that.
Okay. I'll let you do your thing. Have a great show,
And then
brother.
tomorrow I'm interviewing Justin for the following week.
Mr.
So,
Marler.
yeah.
Oh yeah. That's awesome. I'm excited for both.
All right,
brother.
sir.
Show's
Thanks,
yours.
Mono. I guess I'll start this in a proper way, and I'm not. I wish we didn't have to, but memory eternal to Archbishop Peter of Chicago and Mid America, which is he was Archbishop over my jurisdiction in Rocor, and I was fortunate enough to see him. I would say it was about 3 weeks ago. I was down at Father John Whiteford's parish in Spring, Texas. Archbishop Peter was there, and I had no idea, obviously, that in just a few weeks he would be reposed. So, memory eternal to Archbishop Peter. And so now we can do the fun stuff. Thanks for you guys being here. Speak up in the comments, and we'll go back and forth, and I can answer questions as we go. I'm not used to being on my own, but this is kind of cool. So we'll talk some things. Obviously, I love the news. I love politics, and I understand that these people that we elect are not our kings. I don't worship them. They're not my idols. But I come from a political background, and I still enjoy the circus that it is. And boy, has it ever been one. I do feel like things are getting they're going to get wild and crazy for some people, but this paradigm shift that we're seeing is going to be, in my guess here, unlike anything. I can't even allow it to sink in because it won't. Because if you've been into politics for 25 years or so, it's hard to realize what we're about to see is extremely different. The paradigm shift is extremely different than anything we've ever seen before, I think. Again, in a few years, I could rewatch this and go, boy, was I optimistic and wrong. I don't know, but it seems much different. And some of the things we're going to talk about is the reaction from progressives and Democrats, and they're certainly missing that point. Sometimes you see it on the right too, and within libertarianism, the whole, well, they're both evil. Some of that sort of thing, because we're used to thinking that. But friend of the show, Dave Smith, has been saying, if you've studied or watched politics or been involved or whatever for a number of years, it's hard to see what's happening right now and go, this is just the same as McCain versus Obama, or Bush versus Kerry. It seems way different than that to me, the coalition that Trump has put together. But let's get into this. First, I want to talk about the pride, because the main thing I was thinking within several weeks prior to this election even happening, pride is something that I'm always concerned about within myself, because it's it's some of the people within our circles, Orthodox priests and whatnot that I know personally, say it is the worst sin. And it was hard to not notice it. Once you start trying to work on it yourself, you start to kind of see it pop up within yourself, but also elsewhere. And it seemed like the entire left regime movement trying to get her elected, there was so much pride in it without inward looking. Maybe we're going to do this. We'd like to do this. No, it was just she's going to destroy him. Women are speaking up. All of these kind of tropes that are a bit tired and antiquated at this point. And I just kept seeing it. And I thought, for those who listened to my show prior to the election, Charles Haywood and I both predicted, I had been doing this, as had Charles, for months, that she had zero possibility of winning. And I genuinely thought that if I was wrong, I would have come out right now in the next episode and the one after that and said, I was wrong. I'll figure out why I was wrong. But I just was pretty certain something was off about her. I kept thinking of pride comes before the fall. the people on Twitter that I kept seeing pop up that were pushing for her, there was just this weird hubris in the entire messaging, and it felt fake. And I thought, it's just, I can't imagine something so fake and so full of pride succeeding. And that's not to say that I think, oh, everything Trump said is truthful and whatnot, but just relative to what she was saying and her people were saying, it just seemed stark, the difference. Pride defiles a person and will bring him low, and then disgrace comes upon him, because the arrogance is an abomination to God. And so that's from Ortho Wiki, which I think is a handy resource for you guys who haven't looked that up before. And I'll show you some, let's look at the reactions after. I've seen two famous progressives show humility. One was Van Jones and one was Bill Maher. And I want to show you some of the reactions and see, it's like, did we learn a lesson at all about being prideful prior to this election? And look at what we have. Let's see. First, here, I'll just show you some of the things. These are people I know personally. Let's see what we got. How's this? Is this, yeah, there we go. Thank you. Congrats to my classless, homophobic, and misogynistic friends and family today. You did it. That is a person that I have told I love you. She has told me I love you, Buck, many times throughout my lifetime. And I suppose I don't know if she thinks I'm those things or what. We don't have to do the screen share, you guys. If that's hard to do, I'm just going to read a few of these. Another girl that I know personally. So I disowned my parents. I still had hope that they could be redeemed, but they are cult members now, not my family. If anyone has anything planned around Austin for Thanksgiving or Christmas, let me know. I can't sit down with someone who voted away my future, okay, thanks, I'll screen share in a second. I don't want to show this person's name. Sometimes I'm like, why don't people just show their name? Have some balls, and here I am not doing it. I still feel bad for them. I can't sit down with someone who voted away my future, who voted against their own best interests. See, like, how do you know what my best interests are? What that disposition in pretending to care about people, it's really strange. Who voted for hate and ignorance over, here we go again, education and success. What success and education did Kamala represent? Not sure. I just can't anymore. Those people don't give a F about me. They can stick with their cult friends and leave me the F out. So that's a person ditching their family. Here's another girl I know personally. Anyone else feeling paranoid? I can't stand walking around now wondering who voted the wrong way and who thinks I'm not worthy to have rights to my own body. We're going to get to that part in a minute. Thank you for the love of the shirt. I'll think of the company here in a second. Who voted the wrong way? Who thinks I'm not worthy to have rights to my own body? I'm angry about it. Keep in mind, this is interesting. This person lives in California. And so I'm not sure which bodily rights were taken away from her in that state. But needless to say, that's what she thinks. I have friends and family who voted for the toilet that I know I need to cut out of my life because they think women's rights or LGBTQIA, what's the IA? Rights were worth more than their butter and egg prices. But here we are. That's another funny one is there's during the COOF, I don't want to get mono knocked off, but during the COVID era, there was this little trope floating around by progressives that people like myself and probably some of you people listening, we thought haircuts and margaritas were more important than people's lives, because if you go out and get a drink and get your hair cut, which, things I like to do, it's going to kill people. Anyway, back to the egg prices. here we are. I have deep regret, deep disappointment, so much so that I'm having issues functioning. This is tragic, and people think I'm overthinking or overreacting. No. Who would think that? But I'm not. It's not okay to disapprove of someone else's human rights. I'm just lost right now, heartbroken. I'm literally grieving, and it hurts. Interesting. So I also would state this. I wanted to tell you, I'm not ragging on these people. I have been praying for them, and I'm not saying that hyperbolically. I know some of them, like I said. I'm not ragging on them, or I'm not going to comment on their things and go, you idiot, or something like that, because I want to think that it's not them, right? That this is not really their sincere heart. This is propaganda. This is a spiritual issue. There's a lot being fed into this whole demeanor and disposition to act like this. So my point is, Tatiana posted something about not being mean to them or not mocking them, and so I agree with that. I don't, there was part of me, maybe that was pride, the next morning where I wanted to find these things and go, haha, but it's not right. It's sad. And I mean, I know someone personally who went to a mental health trauma center for women. That's pretty disappointing and pretty sad that this has that impact on people. I also think, what are the politics? I know it's a spiritual thing. I do believe that. Politically, what leads to this? Because I know some diehard Trump supporters. I mean, I voted for him, but it's not like I have posters of him or something. But I know people that are diehard for him, and they thought, well, I think Biden and the deep state or whoever cheated in 2020. There was no crying. There was no mental health check-ins to facilities. Everyone just, and I know haters listening are going to go, what about J6? I'm talking like an organic, natural occurrence among people that I know that love Donald Trump. I never saw it. So what I don't understand. I'm trying to figure out politically. I know it's spiritual, but how is it manifesting through politics that particular political circle has this reaction? It's disturbing. Here's another one. We will never. I've seen this trope pushed out by people I know personally, like this one. We will never vote in a free election again in our lifetimes. They will remain in power until we die. Who's they? We will lose our insurance, Medicare, and Social Security and spend life savings on healthcare. That life savings will be wiped out when the recession hits and markets crash. I love this. Leftists are into free market economics now. When tariffs are imposed. Interesting. I didn't know there were Rothbardians. Vaccines will be banned. Ooh. Disaster relief will disappear. People we love will be jailed or deported or bleed out in the hospitals. Women will lose the right to vote. These are not my fears. These are not her fears. Well, it's not a fact. So I guess you could say it's an educated speculation, possibly. These are not just my fears. It's what's been promised. Oh, I missed that. I looked at Trump's campaign website before I voted for him. I didn't see some of the things she's talking about, but maybe it was like Dark MAGA was putting that out there. Maybe I missed that. I'm sorry. Just really sad to see how half Americans are full of fear and hate. I'm heartbroken. To which I thought, I didn't respond. Which half? So I'm going to share this one. This one is what I want. If you can make a clip from this, if you'd like to, I think this would be helpful. I hope it would be helpful for females in your life who act like those people were acting. Let's see. There we go. EV Magazine, if you guys are not familiar with them, it's a pretty decent follow on Instagram and just their website. Julie Mastrini, my ex-girlfriend, who I'm still close with. Many of you guys are familiar with her. Her and her sister, I believe Amy did too, used to write for them. So it's kind of I wouldn't say necessarily, I don't know that they're a Christian-based magazine, but they certainly are not feminists, if you will. Dear women, if you are currently suffering from intense fear, we'd like to tell you the truth and offer you comfort. Legacy media is emotionally abusing you with their lies. You've been a victim of manipulation and have been ruthlessly targeted with debunked misinformation over and over this election cycle. No rights have been taken from you. Democrats and the media are using rage bait for clicks and engagement, especially around abortion. Fear sells, but it doesn't serve you. No more lies, no more gaslighting. This toxic cycle ends with us. And I want to add this one too. This goes into the actual procedures that people keep saying are going to be banned. I'm sure you guys have seen some of this. I have as well. I'm going to share this one. The treatment for an ectopic pregnancy is that word that I can't say, that word that I can't say, or another word that I can't say. You guys can see it on the screen. This is not an abortion. I have seen multiple women say, I once had an ectopic pregnancy, blah, blah, blah. I'm sad because now I wouldn't have this operation. The treatment for aseptic uterus is antibiotics and a DNC, which I don't know what that is. Funny, it almost sounds like DNC. DNC, again, it's not an abortion. The treatment for an incomplete miscarriage is misoprostol or a DNC. Again, neither is called an abortion. None of these treatments are illegal anywhere. So we keep saying this, and I'll share this one too. Now, this one is one that probably some of us wish was not the case, but it is the case. And again, it's like these people don't know it. This is from Trump himself. Let's get that up there. Everyone knows I would not support a federal abortion ban under any circumstances, and I would, in fact, veto it because it is up to the states to decide based on the will of their voters, the will of the people. Blah, 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 like Ronald. I fully support the 3 exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I do not support the crazy stuff the Democrats support. So again, and there we go with that stuff. Again, that's probably something we almost wish Trump didn't feel, but he does. He said it. It's right there in black and white. Now they're going to go, he's lying. Once he gets in, then he's going to do it. As far as I remember, he didn't do it last time. It was the court that overturned Roe v. Wade. I guess they're going to go, well, it was judges that he appointed, whatever. I don't get that. Unfortunately, a lot of times we're not dealing with a lot of factual stuff here. It's a lot of intense emotion. And let me get another one for you guys to read. This is from my friend of my show, Justin. And let's see, here we go. This was helpful too. He did a lot of research on this and wanted to get me these. Women scream about how women are dying because they can't get an abortion. 0.7% of all abortions are due to rape, incest, and health of the mother or viability of the fetus. If you add in debilitating complications for the baby that are non-terminal, it goes up to 1.2%. So 98.8% of all abortions are completely elective. Nothing wrong with the mother or child. So there we go. That was their main issue, was abortion. Can you think of any other issue that she ran on that was brought up a lot? I cannot. A lot of the time she seemed to almost go towards Trump. She went on, he said no taxes on tips. She said the same thing, but they really wanted that. And I think if you see females, like the things I was reading that are going a little bit cuckoo over some of this, the results of the election, typically it's some sort of reproductive right thing. Excuse me. So oddly enough, even that was built on sand. It wasn't solid ground. And that's some of the things I kept seeing, again, to my previous point, where like this whole house of cards they're trying to build here, Kamala, her team, her supporters, it was all built on fake stuff that wasn't real. So I just could not imagine it winning, and it didn't. It was an ass kicking. Popular, and I predicted that too. Popular vote, electoral college, all of the things. They're fueled by pride is something else that I had mentioned. You can see that in their unwillingness to look inwardly afterwards, like we've just seen. A lot of the things now is it's education. We're uneducated and they're educated. So our education system's got to get better. So if he does kill the Department of Education, look out for some fireworks there. But it's the irony is like, well, if you thought over half the country was poorly educated and elected this guy, I guess the Department of Education is not working very well. And this sense that these beliefs, I call them luxury beliefs, where it's social justice stuff. When the economy is truly bad, the hubris and pride that it takes for some sort of left-wing activists to pretend that your average working middle-class family cares more about gender pronouns or whatever the luxury belief of the moment is, than the economy, their ability to earn a paycheck that goes somewhat far. Again, we get this knock. You care more about the price of eggs and milk. Yeah, of course we do. What world do you live in where that's not true? Because the rights that you're talking about aren't going away. And most people understand that clearly. So yes, the hubris and pride that it takes to throw that around like we're some kind of backwards fools because we want our money to go further than it is now. Again, the irony is here, Trump, a lot of this spending was under him. Like he is not without responsibility for the economy as it is right now. He is partially responsible for the inflation. They seem to, they don't actually bring that up. I think that would have been a fairly interesting talking point had they. But I put this out on Facebook and on Twitter. For the most part, it got support. I've lost 13. I only know this because when the election was over, I never look at this, but I went on Facebook to see how many friends I had because I didn't know. And I took a screenshot because I knew that I was going to post a thing or two about the election. I thought, I wonder if I'm going to lose friends. I've lost 13 so far. One I know was from this point that I tried to make, but it was last night showed us a ton of new information. For some of us, much of the information was confirming that what we had been speculating. Legacy media cannot compete with alternative media. It's only alternative in its messaging, since guys like Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson have a far bigger reach than NBC News. The legacy media still relies on an antiquated messaging platform of quick sound bites and narrative manipulation that just cannot hold up against long-form podcasting. They can no longer gatekeep the messaging. Trump was wise enough to know that he could and should sit for hours with guys like Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan. Elon and JD Vance knew this as well. Kamala, I might change this a little bit. I said Kamala and her pride and hubris thought she was better than that and refused it. I'm still not sure on that. I certainly think she thinks she's better than that. I also think it's possible she knows she couldn't do it because everyone listening to this understands that Kamala Harris could not sit for 3 hours and have a conversation without sounding poorly. So I don't know if she knew that or if she thought she told Joe Rogan, you come to me and it's going to be 45 minutes or an hour. And he's like, well, no. And the leftist backlash online was, how could he say no? She's the sitting VP. And it's like, because he's way more relevant than she is. And he will continue to be much more relevant than she is, as is being proven right now. Progressivism's very ethos is founded upon pride and hubris. As long as they have platforms owning and gatekeeping the false narrative, that can't work. That can work. This is why they hated Elon buying Twitter. They knew their control of the narrative was slipping. This is why Fox News ousted Tucker and was too prideful to admit that they needed him more than he needed them. So he went on to smash them in viewership with his own platform. Last night, this is the day after the election, last night was a referendum on media, among other things. Real talk and long-form discussions are moving from the alternative to the preferred. The legacy media is done. The crafting of a slick soundbite messaging system and narrative control by mega corporations is done. If the left wants to sit and stew in their massive loss and blame racism, ignorance, and misogyny, they can do that. Excuse me, where did I go? Boomer here, side boys and girls. They can do that at their own peril. Notice it was Generation X. Shout out to Mano and Tatiana and other Gen Xers in here that pushed Trump to victory. It's no coincidence that Gen X is the largest listenership of quote unquote alternative media. This is a huge white pill if you care about what makes people tick, where they see things headed, and why things are happening in real life. It's also a white pill because the legacy narrative crafters have lost their grip on control, and the toothpaste is now out of the tube. The paradigm has fundamentally shifted, and it's not going back. Being a boomer isn't necessarily your age. It's a spirit and a disposition. Shunning alternative media for legacy media puts you squarely in the boomer camp, despite your age, and boomer media is done. And so I started thinking about this, and this is actually what Van Jones came out and echoed. Again, he's one of the only people I saw that that was humble about this, and he basically said, "We are idiots. We should have been pushing Kamala to go on podcast. We're mocking them, etc." That's why she lost. And I think one of the white pills here also is we will never have a candidate that has any hope on any side that can't go on these long form discussions. And I think the reason that's a white pill is because agree with someone or don't agree with them, at least they're going to be capable of something like that. Obviously, we saw JD Vance do it. We know he's good. There's people in the RNC that have run in the past that absolutely could not do that. We know Ron Paul, even at his age, probably could right now. I will give Obama the benefit of the doubt. I suppose he probably could as well. But you think Kamala could have? No. You think Walz could have? Absolutely not. So I think we're in for an interesting future. I also predicted that you will no longer ever again see a major political debate on a major network. I think we're done with that. So I think, again, the paradigm has shifted massively. And so it's going to be an interesting time. I wanted to play this. Speaking of prideful, do I have this one? Oh, goodness. Yeah. Let's get this up. I'm going to screen share this. This whole episode really is about the pride and hubris of the losing side and why I saw that as their downfall to begin with. And I want to show you this one demonstrates it almost more than anyone I have seen yet. And shout out to Jason Miranchuk from Miranchuk Now. He played this first on one of his GOAT streams the other day, but he didn't have. I now found this woman's the second part of her lovely message for us, and let's get that up here. Check this out, you guys. Here we go. This is good.
We're closing in on almost 5 p.m. Eastern time, and I've been tracking everything that's been going on across the country today. And my most important encounter was when I went out to get my champagne. I was talking to the guy in the store, of course, asking him, did he vote? And he said he did early voting, and he asked me if I early voted. And he asked me, why I was getting the champagne. And I said, because I'm going to be toasting Madam President tonight. And he just looked at me with kind of like a smirk on his face. And I said, she's going to win this, right? And he says, oh, well, it's very, very close. And I said, no, it's not. He says, well, what do you mean? I said, no, it's not. The women of America are making their voices heard. Reproductive rights is what it all comes down to. And the women are voting in numbers relative to men that are unbelievable. She's won this. And I said to him, she's going to take every one of the swing states plus Iowa. And he said, oh, but the numbers are so close. I said, I'm a political analyst. I'm telling you right now, the numbers are there. She's taking this election. And then I said to him, you realize, and he didn't tell me who he voted for, but of course I knew. And I said, you do realize you wasted your vote, right? And I didn't care. And I walked out with my bottle of champagne and happily walked home. Bye-bye. So, as you know, Kamala Harris did not win the election. As the numbers stand right now, there were 18 million fewer votes than in 2020. And as I have said all along, you have to have a huge, huge turnout. And it goes to the Dems. And we didn't have it. There is one fundamental thing that you cannot account for when you're using data to predict or project the outcome of an election, is you can't factor in the impact of racism or the existence of racism and misogyny.
There it is. There it is. I was waiting. I'm so naive sometimes that I was listening to that. And again, like someone in the, I think, mentioned in there, when I'm a political analyst, okay, I thought, okay, here she goes when she says there's one thing you can't account for when you're just studying numbers and analytics. And I thought, oh, she's going to say like a shift in spirit or a shift in mood. I'm so naive. I thought that for a second, and there it was. You can't account for racism. Okay, or misogyny. Fair enough. Well, I hope that, she's looking down. One of my judges of character in a person is I'll watch them if I'm out to eat with them or something like that, how they treat people with less status than them. Like a busboy or a waiter or waitress, bartender. And I'm imagining she thinks that she's a successful political strategist or analyst, whatever she called herself, and that this guy's an idiot that works at a store. She's laughing, bye-bye, ha-ha. And it's like, but he was right and you were wrong. I'm guessing she didn't go tell him sorry or anything like that, because rather than, again, look inside herself and go, why did I make this mistake? Why did I make some video about it that now people are watching across the world? Where was I wrong? But no, it's not me. It's the other. It's, I suppose, white men. She didn't specifically say that. She means men because she said misogyny. So there you go. It's not her fault for being wrong. It's ours. Interesting theory. And if I know you guys all, I assume everyone listening here knows who Father Turbo is. He said so many times, clean the inside of the cup. And I wish he could have a talk with some of these people as well, because they're not doing that. It's frustrating. And I wanted to end on this. The paradigm shift that we're experiencing, this is what I'm about to talk to Matt Erickson about. It's so different than anything I think. Now, again, this is where I'm at now with it. This is what I think is happening. If I'm wrong, I'll say it. It seems to be like nothing in my adult life that I've ever witnessed as far as politics go. And I've followed it. Again, I started voting in 2000 after I read The Great Libertarian Offer by Harry Reid. Straight ticket libertarian. I was involved in both Ron Paul campaigns. I was involved slightly in the Michael Badnarik campaign. So it doesn't make me as brilliant as that woman we just saw, but it is something I pay attention to and follow. I've never seen anything like it. It's his willingness to assemble a much better group of people around him than he did last time. If you guys saw him on Rogan, he willfully admitted, didn't know really had to appoint people. There's all these people in my ear, this guy, and ended up putting bad people in there. I think with Tucker, Elon, Tulsi, RFK, JD Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, again, you don't have to love all of these people. I certainly don't idolize them or put my faith in princes of men, as we say. But I think that he is surrounding himself with a lot better people. If you watch the video he made and just put out recently on his plan, I'm a little bit disturbed that he did this so quickly. He must be confident in his security. His plan to dismantle the deep state. If you would have played Buck Johnson of 2007 when I was working for the Ron Paul campaign, that video, and said the guy who gets elected president in 2024, first of all, is Donald Trump, but second of all, is going to put this video out detailing how he's dismantling what will then be called the deep state, what we might call the administrative state. Samuel Francis and Paul Gottfried had written about these things a lot. It's insane. I could not, when I watched that, first thought was, I hope he's safe. Second is, I cannot believe a guy who's about to be president is planning on doing these things. It's pretty incredible. So I'm optimistic as far as government politics goes. I think the paradigm has shifted. I would caution people on our side, if you come from where I do, it's ingrained in us almost to say, well, both sides suck, both sides are evil, they're both going to be under the thumb of the Jays. Give this an open mind and open heart, and be optimistic, be skeptical, always be skeptical. I am. Again, I'm not worshiping these people, but it's just, it's a paradigm shift, I think, like I've never seen, like we've never seen. So I don't want to be stuck in a framework of 2012 where I'm saying that both sides are the devil and these old tropes that I used to spit out as I was a libertarian, because I don't want to be in the same camp, no pun intended, as these lefties they're still spouting, women's reproductive rights, and you're sexist, and you're this. They've been saying that since George Bush ran. So their operating system needs a lot of, they're operating with like a Commodore 128, and I don't want to do that. And so again, is Elon our friend? It seems to be at this moment. He certainly is, because I was putting things on his platform that YouTube didn't allow. With Dr. Naomi Wolf, I got kicked from YouTube, that particular video. Elon allowed it. Is he the enemy? Maybe one day. I don't know that. I don't know. But right now, he's the richest man in the world, and he seems to be doing things that benefit people in our circles and larger. I'm not just like, I want to be good or benefited and screw everyone else. He seems to be doing things that benefit a large amount of people. Again, I'll be skeptical of him, and I'll be happy when he does things that I see help. And so I think that's where we're at right now. I guess I don't have anything much to say. This has been pretty good. Thank you guys for sitting with me. We're going to do more of these. I always have more to say, so I shouldn't end by going, I guess I don't have much to say. I do have more to say, but I'm about to say it with, well, you can come back in, Mono. I'm about to say it with Matt Erickson. So I got to make sure we're all dialed in with that too. And how's it going over there?
Buck, that was awesome. How did you feel doing the segment?
Fun. I felt, I didn't feel fun. I felt it was fun.
Oh, it was awesome, man. I really like your take. Hold on, man. I hear an echo. Is that sorry? Echoes drive me nuts. No, I don't want to take up too much of your time, because I know you have the interview with Matt. So sorry, you said a lot of stuff there that I really appreciate. I liked, and a great breakdown. Obviously,
hold on real quick, Mono. Hold on real quick. Nadim says mono echoing. I don't hear an echo.
Oh, no, we're good. It was on my end. I think it was something on StreamYards. We're good.
Okay, sorry.
Manny fixed it. It's all good. Echoing pride and hubris. That was I really like that you focused in on that, because I think that's the problem from the get-go. That's how we got into this problem. with, before when we used to call it social justice warriors, and then it's moved to the woke and to all this stuff. And then we saw it on the main stage. And I never thought in my life I would see that type of identity politics be part of actual politics. Like, do you remember politics back when we were kids? It wasn't like this. So I really like that you put that emphasis there, and I agree with the way you concluded it. And I really like that you said that, because that's something some people asked my opinion on the election and all that stuff, and I said a lot of what you were saying right there. That, like, yeah, I used to be like uniparty, all that stuff, and that's probably true, and it could be true, but also not partaking in this case, especially American politics, where you can actually make a difference on a local level. I think,
Yes.
and I think that's huge.
There's a point I forgot to make too.
Yes.
This is, and Matt's made this many times. It's not my original thought. Dave Smith has made this before. People in our circles right now will be a step away from Trump's ear. Dave Smith, a person I know personally, I have his phone number, can talk to Vivek, can talk to Tucker, can talk to RFK. And if you noticed, I don't know if anyone caught this, when Dave Smith was on Joe Rogan's show the day after the election, he went on there and said, Trump, if you're listening, I'm paraphrasing, do not hire Mike Pompeo. He is a neocon. He was Dick Cheney's choice, Liz Cheney's choice, blah, blah, blah. Do not hire him. Within hours, that was the #1 trend on Twitter. No Mike Pompeo. So we actually have, because of this alternative news I was talking about, and it's only alternative in its messaging when you compare it to, the mainstream, but we are all a step or two away from Trump's ear. So there's ways, I think the optimism here is that we can help affect some of these things that happen. Again, Mike Pompeo in your cabinet of any position would be a disaster. And so if he ends up not hiring him because Dave Smith started this and it got to Joe Rogan, it gets to Tucker, we're fine. So these sort of things, this is it's a paradigm shift. It's a moment in a timeline that is like Trump would say, like nobody's ever seen before. So I think it's important not to get black-pilled, and it's important not to just think everyone in power is out to kill me, or you're not, also just for our circles, you're not going to get in power as a president without some connection to Israel and the group that comes out of Israel. Let's just say that. 100%. So yes, he might have to have some sort of lip service. I don't know. I don't love that either. But again, if you get someone up there that just gives the middle finger to that group at the moment, you're not going to get power. At least he's got the power. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I fully agree. I like that, because the small little things we can do, whether it's like using alternative media or this type of media that we're doing right now, having these types of conversations, it allows the average person to actually have some power, even though we walk around thinking we have zero power. And that's something as a libertarian and a former libertarian, former anarchist would always be on my mind. Well, you can't do anything anyways. You actually could see on a local level, you can make changes. And if you can make it in a local level, then you can make it on a state level. If you could make it on a state level, then maybe you can make it on a national level. Like you said, some of the people in our circles have his ear. We could get messages through that type of thing. And also, not to bring it back to Texas, because yes, that's been on my mind a lot. One thing I really saw face-to-face, first-hand experience in Texas was constantly saying Texas first. And I remember when I saw that slogan, it took me a second. I knew what it meant. It's like, it's a Christian ideal. Take care of your family first, then take care of your neighbor, then take care of your town, then take care of your state. And then everybody does this. You have a better, healthy community around you. And some of these decisions, like you're saying, some of these options and tools we have, do help make people a part of a community and change their opinions. So I think that's why these types of segments are important.
Tucker has Trump's ear at the dial of a phone. And let's not forget, Father Peter Hears and John Hears were just up with Tucker at his house. Exactly. So this stuff is not the stuff that we hold valuable, the traditions, the faith, the worldviews. It's not as far away as you think from the soon-to-be president.
Yep. So true. And that's life, isn't it? In some ways.
Yeah.
People are closer. You know, you could watch someone's podcast for a little while, and all of a sudden they're your buddy and they're on your show. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Isn't that weird? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
It is my goal at some point to be in communication with Tucker Carlson. If I was
it could
Oprah,
happen.
what do they call that? The secret or whatever. I'm just throwing it out there into the universe.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to happen, girl. But yeah, we shall see. But that is a goal of mine.
I
And
think it could
yes,
happen.
that was very kind what you said. I know exactly what you're talking about, Mono.
Well, my dear friend, I know you have an important interview coming up with Matt. Please give him my regards. And
will.
tomorrow with Justin Marler, also give him my regards. I noticed. I think I've made Matt's radar now because he's been watching. I saw him creeping in my world, so that's pretty cool. I'll probably have
He
to reach out
mentioned
to
you
him
the
soon.
other day.
He did.
Yeah, someone brought. I can't remember because I watch his show constantly, but I remember it here. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Oh.
Someone said either someone was bringing up your show, like if they saw Father Turbo or something. I honestly can't remember the reference, but Matt goes, they were struggling to say your name, and Matt goes, yeah, Mono from Study of Stuff, and finished
That's
it.
awesome.
And I was
That's
like, oh,
awesome.
cool. Okay.
That's cool. That's cool. Wicked.
Yeah.
My dear friend, anything to plug before you go? Anything? Any final parting words?
No, thank you guys for watching. Yeah, I assume people here know it's Counterflow. Tuesday will be Matt Erickson, King Pilled himself, and next Tuesday is Justin Marler. And it's good. Thank you guys for paying attention. And I want to do this again. This is pretty cool. Our new name that I just thought of, we both put together within seconds this morning. But yeah, and have a good Sunday tomorrow, you guys, and hope you go to liturgy. And thank you guys.
Yes. Adios, brother. Have yourself a great night, and say hi to Matt.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye. My dear friends, as always, great segments, great shows. You're getting, I see Manny's grabbing his mic. What's going on? What's up? Anything I missed?
Oh, nothing. Just getting ready for this intermission here.
Oh, we have an intermission. We got CYPRN and Post in the backstage. Before I give a little what's up.
We got 50% of those guys.
I see CYPRN back there. He's there. No worries. We'll give Post a minute anyways. Did he get the message?
I believe so.
Awesome. Well, I think that was an awesome news report. I look forward to doing more with Buck and Christina and Mr. Westford and Mark and a bunch of other people I have in mind. I want to get some new shows out there. I have a good idea for Nadim. We won't. Should I give everybody the name of the show for Nadim, or Manny? Should I keep it to myself for now?
Surprise him later.
Surprise him later, dude. It's an awesome title of a show. It's amazing. Anyways, what was I gonna say? So yeah, we'll have Buck doing that as often as he wants. We're sending him a message. Nadim said no. He wants me to save it, so I will save it. Nadim, I hear you, brother. So on the next Board No More, we'll get Nadim on there doing his show and a few other people I've been talking to. I think that the whole reason we do this Board No More network thing and what we're trying to develop here with this, it's just in the beginning stages. You'll see the next episode that we put out. It'll be a huge difference. What we're trying to do is kind of keep it entertaining, keep it orthodox, keep it real, keep it honest. Use the technology, not the technology use us. We use the technology to do exactly what Buck was talking about. Buck made a lot of great points there, and it ties in really nicely. What does that mean? That means that we're talking about history, tradition. We're talking about the past and bringing things that we can learn from the past to the present. Buck pointed out a lot of key factors that had to do with the election and a bunch of things in the news cycle. The new media versus the old media, the impact that it has and how we use it, as well as it shows the psychosis, the craziness that could be created by using this medium to drive people crazy and make them all nutso. It also shows us how we can bring everybody together, how we can build community, and I think we're all seeing that with the little community we have going on here. Again, it's not my community and Manny's community; it's our community. I hate to be cheesy and say that way, but I think it's very true. It says Cam a bit pixelated, Mano. Oh, I'm pixelated. So we have I guess our streaming things are going down. Manny, what's up?
Just some basic Mexican lag.
Basic Mexican leg. You know what I'm talking about? Mañana. But today is not mañana. Tomorrow's mañana. Today is today. But tomorrow won't be mañana. It'll be the day of. And then the Monday will be the mañana. That's how it works, just in case anyone wasn't sure. All right. I saw Post is in the chats. Is he around?
Yeah, he's just getting StreamYard up now.
No problem. I got to go to the bathroom. Can you do me a favor and do some splasheroos or whatever while I go pee?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. I'm going to take myself off because you guys, without you can see me pee, I'm going to be going to the bathroom to do that. I don't pee in the studio. It's not really a studio. It's a desk with stuff.
What's happening, man? What's happening? What's happening?
Bored no more.
What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? This is the Bored No More Network. Bored No More. What's happening?
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Just gonna throw this up. Thanks, Tatiana, again. Just a note for everyone in the chat. A portion of your donations go to the creators featured today. So, yeah. Don't be afraid to show them some support. And we also have one from Girl Hex. Thank you. Thank you again. So, now...
Let's go. Let's go.
Jeepo Town. Jeepo Town.
Oh, my dear friends, I hope you're enjoying this lovely broadcast. If you want to help support any of the content creators that you've seen so far, that you've enjoyed their amazing content, feel free to donate to us. We'll be splitting all the donations with all of our lovely friends on Bored No More Network. As well as if you want to help support us in general, feel free to join our Patreon, where we'll have some interesting conversations that we can't have out here, but we can have over there. Anyways, feel free to help us out if you like.
All right, I'm back from the bathroom. I just sat down and bam, there's my camera. I didn't even realize that was going to happen. There it is. All right. So I'm going to bring on my dear friend CYPRN. We'll give Post a minute, have him pop in whenever he's ready. Man, is everything okay on Post's end that you know of? Sloppy burrito bars here. What happened, Manny?
He's just having some regular StreamYard.
Okay. Cool. So you got that. I'm going to bring up my dear friend CYPRN. Is that cool?
Yep.
All right. CYPRN, give me a thumbs up if you're ready. All right. He's ready. All right, dear friends. We're going to be doing the panel. We're going to be doing the panel. See that? I speak in great Canadians. Very good Canadians. I speak it. Okay, so I'm going to bring up CYPRN, and we're going to... What's up, my dear friend? How are you, sir?
Hey, handsome. How are you? Can you hear me?
I can totally hear you. I love the background there. It looks sick.
This is just my life. It's not a picture. You're in my man cave. No. This is real. You can touch this stuff.
That's awesome.
It's real.
That's so analog. It's great.
Yeah.
How are you doing today, brother?
Man, I'm good. I'm sick. The whole family's a little mashed up, but we're gonna power through. And respiratory stuff going around. I don't know.
Me too, actually. So that's weird.
Yeah. But besides that, good, man. Got a lot of free time. I'm a waiter right now, so I have tons of free time.
Awesome. I miss waitering. I've done lots of that.
It's not by choice, but gotta keep things moving forward.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, 100%. Hold on, I see posters here. I'm gonna throw them up as well, and we'll do an introduction.
Hey, can
Hola,
you hear
what's
me?
up, bud? I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you see me at all? That's the real
Ish,
question.
ish.
All right. I'll see if I can move closer to a light source because I'm actually in the wood. I told you I was going to be in the woods.
I love it. It's totally okay,
yeah.
man. Don't worry. That's pretty sick.
What's up, dude?
Hey, what's up, Cyprian? How's it going, man?
Hey, man.
Yeah, it's like the Blair Witch Project right now.
Yeah,
So if you see anything behind me, just let me know, and I'll pop out.
Okay. So I'm gonna give a quick little introduction. Also, the lag is pretty incredible and crazy. So just a word to the wise, give a couple beats in between saying stuff because the lag is a little bit more than normal. You guys good with that?
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so what we're going to do is basically I'm going to have you guys give a quick description of yourselves for those of you that don't know who you guys are, and kind of an emphasis on the type of music you make and why you make it. And then we'll kind of just get into a free-form conversation. I didn't write out any notes or any of that. I want to have an open conversation about certain subjects that we are very passionate about, mainly writing music, making music, the how you view digital versus analog, those kinds of things. And I also do want to make a little bit of an emphasis on the medium and how that changes how you make music. So I guess I'll start with Cyprian, and then we'll go to Post or Eric. And what we'll do is
Eric. Your name's Eric. All right.
Yeah, I know.
Or
I have no idea.
It's Eric. A quick description of who you are and the type of music you make and why. Go ahead, Cyprian. It's all you.
Girl Hex, thank you, man. We're trying to do it over here, you know. I was working as a videographer, cinematographer, whatever, like, you know, on ads and films and TV as well. Man, music stuff. I don't know. I did the Nashville thing for a long time. I worked for Warner and Capitol and Curb as a writer and a producer, you know, not directly, but they would bring me in to write for their artists. So I did that. It was mainly like production. They wanted their tracks to sound, you know, like my tracks. They'd heard my tracks and they were like, we want our stuff to sound like your stuff. So they brought me in to be a track guy, as they're called in Nashville. And, but prior to that, I was, you know, recording rappers and stuff in South Carolina and making like drum and bass jungle stuff from the time I was like a teenager. So I was like 16 when I got started on like trackers where you program your music in like hexadecimal, you know, these little 6 digits separated by colons, and you program it all out, you know. And so I was doing that from the time I was a teenager. And I still do that. You know, I work my music software that I'm using right now is from the 90s, actually. It's like 90s Logic, from when Logic was owned by eMagic before Apple bought it. Is this coherent? Is this good? I think I'm running a low-grade fever. Is this making sense? Are you tracking with this?
Total.
Okay, good.
Totally
good.
tracking.
Good. Did the DJ producer stuff and got in like a band, like a drum and bass group or what have you, you know, and we had we toured and had some releases on big drum and bass labels like Ram and Players and the UK based labels where drum and bass is big. So we did that for a long time. It doesn't make you a lot of money, it turns out. So I just kind of segued into other things like, you know, that made more money. So animation and 3D stuff, programming, things like that, this sort of thing. And Vanny says trackers are sick. Yeah, they are. They're really cool. It's a different flow, you know, a much different kind of workflow. But yeah, maybe that's helpful. I don't know. But now I'm just a dad, and I'm in my 40s. I started in my teens, and I'm just really, you know, I love it. It's a hobby now. It's just, you know, just do your thing. And it's kind of a mission too, I guess. If you can do it for people that have never heard of like what you're into, and you can put a little bit of orthodoxy into it, then thank God, you know, as long as it's not cringe and stupid, you know. If it's bad, then it's like, just don't do it, you know. But we'll see, you know. I run things by Father Turbo and my priest as well, Father Paul, And you know, they've always been encouraging. And if they ever told me like stop, it's whack, I would stop. I'm pretty sure. I'd like to think I would. You know.
For sure. I do the same. I think his camera just froze right.
Hold on, I'm still here.
All of a sudden it froze right when it was your turn.
Hold on, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, totally.
All right, good. Go ahead. Re-ask your question. I think it froze up at the same time, so I kind of missed the
worries.
question.
I was going to say, you're a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit about yourself and the type of music you make and the why.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if this keeps freezing, I'm going to make sure to move somewhere else, maybe get a better reception. But yeah, no, I've been doing music since I was like a kid, so 13, 12. I grew up in a musical family and in like the arts community. So my father was heavily involved in like musical theater, orchestral stuff like that. So I got pretty much just immersed in it from a young age. And as I became a teen, just started experimenting with different stuff. You know, I have similar experiences to CYPRN where it's like getting my hands on any type of, you know, electronic music equipment from an early age. So I used to record like loops on a Casio keyboard.
Yeah.
There was an app called Guitar Rig a long time ago, and I used to just like retrofit that, hooking up. Yeah, exactly. I would hook
the
up
sampling one. This is the sampling one. That's great.
Yeah. No, it wasn't even that cool. Trust me. It was like it was way more rudimentary. Yeah.
Right.
But I used to hook up a record player to guitar rig with like an aux cable and, you know, just all that experimental stuff. So basically over the course of maybe 12 years or so, my entire adolescence, you know, I just was living multiple musical lives. So, you know, I was a bass player. I did upright bass in the orchestra. I played second string violin, went to bass guitar. So I had that background. I did a lot of jazz playing, played in a lot of churches, and did that as well. And then did the music production on the side as well. So by the time I was probably in my early 20s, I was, you know, working as a recording engineer. Once again, recording rappers, as CYPRN said, I had a similar experience, you know, with that. Yeah.
Totally.
You know, I mean, ups and downs, right? You have a lot of good experiences. You also learn what you don't want to do. So no, you know, I've been pretty much immersed in music since I was a kid. And nowadays, I was joking with CYPRN because we have a similar situation. I'm a dad as well, 3 kids. And you know, I have definitely oriented the focus of what I do to try and have impact, like we talked about, man, like a positive cultural impact, you know. That's my main focus now. You know, I've done a lot of the, you know, technical stuff. A lot of my friends went to Berkeley. I almost went to Berkeley. I was definitely verging on that professional music business, you know, performance side of things. And I think at a certain point, I decided to kind of focus more on the cultural impact side of things, and just, you know, try and make music from like a more of a feeling perspective.
Yes.
And I guess that's why now when I talk to people about my music, I try to explain I'm not a big fan of genre categories because like I kind of fall outside of a lot of them. And I do that because A, I have 100 different influences. Like I listen to all types of stuff, but B, because I don't know, I enjoy things based on the feeling it gives me, not so much whether, you know, it's critically acclaimed or something like that. So that's my take nowadays. I try and fit it in where I can, but no, I really like where things are headed with this, you know, Bored No More, talking with CYPRN a bit about what his goals are musically. I think there's a good focus on trying to I'm going to use this word not in a negative sense, but create like a positive propaganda almost, you know.
Yes, that's a good
using music as a tool to convey a message, like you said, the medium is the message and all that. That's really my main focus now, so we'll see I don't know how successful I am, but we do the best we can, right?
I think we can be successful. I think that's why we're doing this. And it's funny because I was on Tommy Salmon's podcast Year Zero a while ago, a long time ago, like a couple months ago. And he when I was describing to him what we're trying to do with re-engineering their social engineering, make our own culture and invert their inversion, he's like, so you're like the orthodox Edward Bernays, creating propaganda to against the system. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. I don't like to compare it, but sort of, yeah. And that is what we're kind of doing here.
Well, it's funny because I think I made a comment. You said invert their inversion. I said you can call it a reversion, essentially, right? Because you're not really like revolting against. It's like revolting against a revolution when really you're just going back to the thing that existed prior. So 100%. I kind of prefer that term.
Me too.
Myself,
I like that.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna rewrite a few of those
rewrite
because like a bunch of them are catching on, and I want to make sure that they're clear. Just a quick thing on my background, just for anyone that doesn't know, because both of you fine gentlemen have a lot of experience in the music perspectives, both from like writing, producing, engineering, and all that stuff. And there are many different hats we all wear. I like that we all dealt with rappers. You learn a lot by recording rappers. I found one thing about rappers is you find out what real skill is really quickly versus like the BS, right? Especially with rappers, because other musicians can hide it, but rappers can't. When a guy's sitting there with his phone in front of his face, spitting into like a mic, okay, you're like, it takes you seconds going, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
My background real quick. I grew up obsessed with music, obsessed with the radio, obsessed with recording things, obsessed with sounds. I started off with 2 cassettes and I would just like record the radio, and then I would do my own versions of SOS radio, I guess, back then. So I started off there. I started playing instruments a little bit here and there. And then I got more serious in the 90s. I started wanting to record stuff, so I bought one of those old school 4-track cassette recorders. Remember those blue ones, those awesome gems? And I started just messing around with sounds. After that, I took it more seriously. I went to music school. I went to a recording arts music school thing in Toronto, a pretty big one with a lot of big names came out of it, and also big names taught there. Like right down to Neil Young was a guest at our school and all that stuff as like a drop-in guest, like was that kind of clout. And I walked into the music industry, worked for Sony BMG and a bunch of independent record labels. I got to see and meet a lot of real artists, like famous ones, not so famous ones. I got to see technology and how it was used to manipulate people, also how to promote people, also how to, pitch correct people that couldn't sing. I saw the whole process behind the scenes. Then after that, I put together a band. I took it more seriously. We were doing really, really, really good up until the COVIDs hit. As I've said many times, we would have opened for Go-Go Bordello if it wasn't for the COVIDs. So we were doing pretty good, but I was also putting on a lot of shows, which was like the beginning of what Bored No More kind of is. And I started to really experiment with what it was like to build communities amongst musicians, how it was being in between like the venue, the recording process, and the audience, and kind of playing with a lot of that, which is kind of what we're doing with the whole Bored No More thing. So anyways, that's my little quick background story. But I really wanted to put focus on what we're doing, what we're just describing there, about how we can re-engineer their social engineering, how we could put out quality product, how we can spread a message, whether it's about orthodoxy, whether it's about just things that are on our minds, family, things like that. The real punk rock. It seems like these are the subjects that really people are offended by. So before we get to a lot of that, or did you guys have any thoughts off that you guys wanted to run off of? Because I don't have anything planned. I want this to be a conversation.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about your musical background. That specific part. Okay. Yeah, no, I just
sure.
No, I just think it's great, man. I think I told you the first time I talked to you, I was like, I'm happy to see people. I'm happy to see a musical culture that's not like a participation trophy thing, and it's not. That's not a dig at anyone. I swear to God, it's not. It's just a you know, when people have a lot of years doing something and they put a lot of their self into it, you know, it's great to see like that kind of experience reflected in a community that's Orthodox Christian in nature, you know. So I really appreciate everything you're doing. Meeting people like CYPRN as well, you know, having a lot of, you know, musical experience, you know, background as well. It's been a great experience for sure.
Awesome. CYPRN, anything you want to add, or you don't have to?
No, man. I think that being different. One thing I've noticed about people, especially since I've been for the past like month, I've been in a restaurant, like a fine dining restaurant, like younger people, you know, and I'm meeting a lot of people. As I've been kind of in a tech gig for a few years, and then just in creative industries before that, and they're all kind of imploding due to AI. A lot of those jobs they're just cooked. A lot of creative people like are cooked, and people tell me like, "Chill, no, you're not," and it's like, dude, I know, like I've done visual effects, compositing, 3D animation. I've worked on films, TV shows, and ads. Like I'm cooked. You know what I'm saying? And all the people are competing with each other. What I'm finding. Being around just Joe Schmo, just regular folks, you know, regular working class people, what I'm finding is like, if you do anything different, if there's anything different going on with you, be it your art or your music, like you really are going to stand out because they are all like, it's like the
That's
NPC
a good point.
meme. You know, it's like the NPC meme, not to like, you know, take a dig at people that I don't know. And I'm painting with a broad brush, but I'm just saying like, you know, culture is in a very low place. I heard these people, man. I heard these people sitting around. They were talking. This one girl, she's in her 20s. She goes, yeah, I'm reading the New Testament right now. She's saying this to one of the other like servers or bartenders. I'm reading the New Testament right now, and just for information purposes. And then they were like, the other people around her, age range is 20 something to 30 something. They were like, when was the New Testament written? Oh, about 100 years ago, and they all unanimously agreed the New Testament was written.
Get out of here!
That's rough, man.
Oh, like people, and these people, they brush their teeth, they press their shirt, their hair is combed. You know, these are just normal people. I mean, people are like cooked right now, man. So in terms of if there's something you can do, if God's given you any gift, or you can do anything to move against the flow, you know, like may it be blessed. You know, it will be noticed. It will be noticed. There's no way it won't stand out because everyone else is, you know, on perks and benzos and addies, and I mean, people are toast, man. You know, I'm back in the world after a long break of just kind of being in creative fields, working from home, cushy tech job, and it's like, yeah, it's different out there. So I think, you know, the reversal of propaganda, it will be noticed if you're doing anything that goes contrary. It'll be noticed. So yeah, that's all I got really though. Is that enough?
I think that's a lot there. That's a great jump off point.
Yeah.
That is so true. We're constantly swimming in a sea of mediocrity. Like I've talked about it before on the show, that things have become like the production part of things have become so easy, whether it's music or videos or art or writing, even like just an AI and all those things. It's become so easy. Anyone can do it, that they're not putting in. It kind of even goes back to the beginning of what Christina was talking about grandparents and what we were talking about with Buck. It's like, you know what? It's like stonemasons. They had to learn from like thousands of years, one upon the other, passing on information to create this stuff. And musicians, that was something you had to do. You had to earn your stripes. But now anyone can make a track on like BandLab. It's so easy and it could sound like that type of quality. Everyone's just pumping out all this garbage, and everyone's on benzos like you talked about. We just went through the 4 years of craziness. People's minds are mush. They can't even distinguish from like what is or isn't. So when someone comes out with something totally different, something real, something raw, something with mistakes and broken and this and that, it stands out for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a two-sided sword too. Like with, I keep seeing people talk about how, you know, for musicians specifically, like you can release music, you can be the most talented musician, put it out, but people want someone to connect to. They want an actual person behind the music. They want a story associated with it. And I actually really understand that because it ties into what we talked about. Like there should be humanity to it. Music, I really see it as a tool, like a means to an end. I mean, I enjoy music, in and of itself as much as anyone else. I spent the first 10 years of my life, my musical life, making instrumental music actually. So, there's nothing really to take from that other than the atmosphere it creates. But by the same token, I think that people can get too wrapped up in the personality. I was talking about this with a family member.
Yep.
He said, you listen to these new songs, like, it was like a Katy Perry song maybe or something. It's garbage, but, people are invested in her as a character. And so they'll eat it up, and she's not the only example by any means. So, there's something about needing to connect with the artist, needing to connect with the story behind the art. But also the flip side is that I think people can overlook the quality of something because they're bought into that person or that persona. So it's a weird state of affairs.
Big time. I'm sorry. I'm putting a Windows Explorer window over myself because I just want to see you guys. And
that's okay. Yeah.
I'm like, and I mess with my hair or something, or I scoot in my seat. But no, man, I tell you, that's a big thing. People are really invested in idols. Like it's like a saint.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've got these
American Idol, right?
Yep. Yeah. They've got these people they look up to and connect to because it seems like if you're not some kind of Christian, quote unquote, people are becoming very atomized. Mm-hmm. I still have a lot of buddies from my old days, from before I was a Christian, so 15 years ago, I have a lot of friends that I still talk to from whatever scene, Nashville music scene, and drum and bass world, old label mates and other producers and stuff like that. And they're very atomized, they just look at media all day. Look at media, they look at social media, they got feeds and it's the algorithm and they're getting very lonely. And I think so people want to connect. They connect with these, other producers or characters that don't really exist. They're not real. They don't connect regular people. So to your point, you're talking about do we want to know the person behind the music? I really don't, in a lot of ways. I just I feel like you put it into the music, and if the music's good, it just stands or falls on its own merit. I feel like, but that's just me. I just like the artistry of it.
Well, if you're making good art, they'll know you from your art.
Yeah. It's like a lot of things. It's like a layered situation because everything you said was correct as well as what Mano said, and probably what I said too. I think that there are wrong ways to do the right thing, like Mano talked about the Father Turbo quote, there's a right reason to want to connect with the artists or understand their viewpoint because, I think we've all experienced this where you like music and then you kind of you grow up, you mature, you develop some new values, and then, that artist's values might put you off of their music. The music is the same, but your growth has turned you off of it. So that's definitely a real thing.
Yeah,
for sure. And then sometimes when you learn more about an artist or there are songs where I'm like, that's okay, and then I learn more about the artist and I go, you know what, let me go back and check that out again, and then I start listening to it and it grows on you, and the reverse happens. I can't listen to Springsteen anymore for all these reasons. I just can't do it. But do I think some of his early songwriting is some of the best? Yes. But can I go listen to Springsteen? No. But then there's some other artists where the reverse is true too. You know what I mean? So knowing
Brody still listens to R. Kelly. Right on, Brody.
Of course he does, man.
Ignition remix and Trapped in the Closet.
In the Closet.
Trapped in the Closet is amazing.
Classic.
Oh my God, I miss
you. Yeah. You got to give him a pass. You got to give him a pass a little bit for that. No.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Oh God.
High art.
Classic R. Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah, man. You know what I'm finding is and I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll just kind of this is something I wanted to say.
Okay.
Because I was thinking about because we're talking about music production stuff, whatever. Yep. I'm finding that the industries around the music production world have undergone a similar consolidation as to media conglomerates and stuff like that. You know, I mean, there are these corporate consolidations happening, but with venture capital firms are coming in and scooping up everything, like Access Music, I believe, or In Music bought up like Moog, M Audio, Native Instruments. So like what you have now is you have these platforms that are getting increasingly consolidated. You got these venture capital firms. They don't know anything about like audio quality. They don't care about that. You know, like it doesn't matter at all. They're just like, they're trying to get you into an ecosystem and get your subscription bucks. And it's kind of like it's gross and it doesn't lead anywhere. And if you go down that route of being quote unquote creative and you do it using their tools, you end up kind of in this boring nowheresville, which is where I would say the majority of aspiring quote unquote, you know, musicians will invariably land up. For me, that's the appeal of using old equipment and old software. It's always going to work. There's no authorization server that's going to go offline in 10 years and then I can't open my software. And that just happened with Reason users a year ago, like perpetual license Reason.
License,
users. Yeah, they purchased it, but they were like, hey, let's get rid of this authorization server. We just can't afford to keep it going. So
it's done,
So it's kind of like you want to leave the reservation if you want to be different. You guys like Mac DeMarco? Anybody in the chat ever listen to
I mean, I know Mark from Light of Tabor loves Mac DeMarco. He put me on to two new Mac DeMarco songs I had never heard.
Man. That dude is recording all like to tape using old gear, and it just has a vibe, man. He stands out. He stands out because he's creative with his songwriting, but also the tools and the mediums cause him to stand out because he stepped away from the kind of venture capital music production reservation, which is like
it's totally even using recording techniques, old recording techniques, and using modern equipment to use them back and forth. It's a total game changer, right? Because like for me, I like scrappy, broken things, as you guys all know. Even when I songwrite or write a song, I like it to be broken and but when I record things, I like to do this. I actually don't like to know too much. Like basically, some of my favorite recordings were recorded. I don't have tape, but I used an old Zoom R16 and recording on that and then bouncing that into a digital space gave it a totally different sound than if I was to like record directly to I use Reaper. And then but then if I just use Reaper as my final edit, but I record everything on my Zoom, the quality of sound is totally different. Now that's a setup right there.
Dude, I love Reaper. Reaper's incredible.
Reaper has a cult following. A real cult following for sure.
This is all the old stuff here, and this just keeps going down and down and down and down.
CYPRN. Every time I message with him, he's showing me, like making me jealous about his equipment. It's like, damn, dude.
Synthesizers. I can't really. It's plugged in, and it'll.
It's a music store in there. That's like my brother. My brother's a gearhead, and he collects. It's a museum. There you go.
Totally.
But I use this stuff, so it's like.
But the way you record changes how the end result of your song too. Like even how you write it changes.
100%.
Totally changes it.
Yeah, I think back when I mentioned when I was a teen, I was experimenting with stuff. One of my first like project, quote unquote, I was in a music technology class in high school, and they were teaching us how to use Sibelius. It was like the early Sibelius, which is like the for people who don't know. It's like an orchestral composition software. And
that's what guys would use that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was such a freak. Like I found like the drum sound in there. I found the bass. I found like the main instruments, and I basically was making beats in Sibelius. And then I hooked the computer up to a cassette tape recorder and recorded it to a cassette tape. And that was my first like album, quote unquote. And I still have it to this day. Yeah, I still have it.
I would love to hear that, dude.
I will. I'll send it to you. No, I need to digitize it.
Do it.
100%. I will send it to you. It's wacky stuff. It sounds like it. I can't really describe it, but you can play it. You can premiere it on the show.
Yes,
from the year 2004 or something like that. Yeah,
that's cool, man. I lost my old music. Like I was a stoner, and I had a catastrophic hard drive failure maybe over a decade ago, and lost everything I ever made. So whatever, you just make it again. But I wish I had the old stuff. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I have my old Bandcamp page. the music on there goes back to 2008. And I think the most recent one's like 2018. So it's like a 10-year stretch. And I'll send that to you guys. It's got like 15 albums. It's all instrumental music, because that's what I did. I did nothing but instrumental music for years and years and years, until I got to a point. Thank you. Yeah, well, so like I didn't start singing until maybe 5 years ago. And even then, my early stuff, I was like trying to figure out how to use my voice at all. And so I think I was trying. Exactly. I was trying to find kind of a good tone. I did a rock project, and then I kind of settled into something, mainly having to do with me listening to a lot of like soul music now. So I sing quieter than I used to, but I find that then you get better melodic control, better tonal control. And frankly, it's just like, unless you're doing rock, you don't necessarily need to be yelling anyway. So, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, the last little while I've taken a step back, and I just started getting back into like seriously writing again and thinking about putting stuff out. Even like listening to some of the old stuff I used to do. Also, you guys have more of an electronic background, the both of you guys, than I do. So that I also noticed that that's a totally different thing on how people write. Also, you guys have more of a production background. Well, usually when you do electronic music, you're a producer, an engineer, and an artist all in one. That's something
mixer,
a lot of
master.
Don't realize unless they make electronic music. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Well, because it's all kind of connected, right? Well, when you're in a band or you're making music like the old school way, it's not so much the case, right? So it's basically the recording stuff is to capture, and then after you move it around, you kind of don't write with it. So there's a little bit of a difference there. But I know since I came back to Orthodoxy, I know we've talked about this before privately and on the air. I kind of struggled with trying to figure how to piece it all back together again and kind of make music again, because it kind of changed something in my head, even in my
voice. That's what I'm doing right now. That long break, same thing for sure.
Yeah. I think it's necessary. You know what I mean? It's necessary.
Is this interesting, chat? Is this interesting? Should we get into something?
Are we boring you guys? Should I go out in the woods and look for coyotes? Would that make it more dramatic? They're here. You can hear them.
We can talk about something crazy.
Wait, are you guys worried they're not going to want to listen to a bunch of musicians talk about geeky stuff?
I mean, really, the stuff that I like, the stuff that I want to prattle about is like
go.
I don't know. I don't know if it's interesting to even.
It's a conversation. Go, man. I'll mediate it. If it's boring, I'll move it around. Don't worry.
No, I mean, I don't think anybody's really gonna like. I don't want to be like that guy, but I don't think he's gonna get it all the time. I mean, I think that I've been recording at really high sample rates. Do you guys ever record at really high sample rates? Like all the way up,
You mean like 32 or 64, like higher? I don't know.
No, those are going to be bit rates. I mean sample rates.
So
Oh,
yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Take it up to like 96 or like 192. And then it's interesting, man, because there's just something there. There's like the quiet is more quiet. There's more separation between elements, and it seems like it gets wider and taller and deeper. And if I bump back down to like 44.1 and stuff like that, it just sounds like a cartoon to me. And music made like that doesn't sound as tall or as wide and as deep as the stuff that does. I've noticed, and this is just on a production tip. I'm just talking about production.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I do. I use bit crushers a lot. So I love, especially if I'm sampling, I'll get a bit crusher and drop it down like 8 bits or something. And what people used to do, I know you probably know this, the SP1200 had like a natural lower bit resolution. And so old hip hop, that you hear like, Pete Rock, maybe people like that, you can hear kind of their sampling like that lower bit rate, and it creates a really cool texture. And that's really my thing, like being an instrumental producer that I was for a long time, like texture and atmosphere are huge.
Yes.
And I can't really differentiate that from like musical, technical, tonal, harmonic, correct performance. Like texture is almost more to me at this point in my life, in terms of importance.
Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It always has been like that soundscape. And I think it's very important, not your left and right handing, but like distance where the microphone's positioned, and in terms of like bit rates or what medium you're recording on, it gives you a totally different space. Like I remember recording certain parts on cassette, like old school cassette, and bouncing it into the digital space because we wanted that certain crunch on the bass. So when we were recording with my band, I was like, no. And he's like, no, I have a reel-to-reel recorder. I don't want a reel. Put an old cassette. He's like, an old cassette. I'm like, get an old cassette. So we recorded the bass just with that, and everyone was kind of looking at me like, dude, do you know what you're talking? Like, I'm like, trust me. Then when you dropped it into the digital space, it gave such more like it gave that crunch because you would have gotten more space on like proper reel-to-reel tape. But because it was on a cassette, it was already compressed.
Yeah,
it was already kind of compressed, and it gives that it's the same thing as recording vocals with a dynamic mic. People don't realize that it has automatic compression, right? So if you're using a SM57 mic,
SM58,
totally different.
SM57,
yeah, SM57, the snare drum mic,
totally, exactly.
Brody said, "Do reel-to-reel recordings have sample rates?" No, they don't. Analog is a completely continuous signal, like a record. But digital recording takes a snapshot of frequency, and which is essentially amplitude and frequency, several thousand times per second. The standard is going to be 44.1 thousand times per second, like a flip book. So that's how digital video works, the same way as digital audio. Brody, if you're interested, yeah, man. I'm like, I don't know if this is interesting or not, but
no, totally is.
But I think it's interesting. But yeah, what I was describing, Brody, is getting that what everybody uses and then doubling that or even tripling it, which really hurts your computer a little bit, but just forces you to think more methodically and use the computer like a tape machine, because the computer is kind of buckling at this point, because it's recording at a super high sample rate. But it's cool. It gives you a different result, I think,
Well, it's also important to note that a lot of those changes, some people walk away from it because the industry has changed. So when even if you do a lot of those things and then you want to put it on Spotify, they'll make your LUFS -14.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It'll just compress everything anyways. So a lot of it gets lost in that compression. That's why that's why I was asking questions like who has a record player, who has a cassette player, who has a vinyl, because we're putting together a comp, which you guys will probably be on. And I'm looking at like figuring out what medium to put it out on, because I don't want to lose that quality. You know what I mean? And mini discs, because I know CYPRN and I went off on mini discs one time. It's a shame that they're gone, because that you kind of capture all of those things in one. Boom, there it is for the youngins.
There you go, classics.
Yeah, these are great, man. They sound totally different. I think like when young people would come over to my place, like younger generation people would like come hang out or something over the years, or I'd have like a write when I was in Nashville. I'd, play a record or something, even like an electronic music record for like, like a Zoomer or something, and their brain would explode because they've only ever heard this really compressed kind of sound. Everything came out of a computer, and they hear that and it just sounds like 3D. It sounds like you're stoned if you're not stoned. Like it's just got this like holographic quality to it. It's crazy. So
have you ever listened to Amon Tobin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He's one of the first artists I remember listening to when I was younger, like electronic music artist. I don't know if you consider him a drum. He has like drum and bass sounding stuff, but that's not his bread.
I would say maybe like the IDM kind of stuff,
Yeah, but he had this 3D sort of atmosphere he created. I don't know if it was like ultra wide panning or what, but I remember thinking his music sounded so high resolution. If I listen to it now, maybe it wouldn't.
Mela has seen him live a few times. That's cool.
Oh, well, there you go. I'm jealous of you. Yeah. He's a good, very high quality
thing, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the reference. It's got to be electronic music.
Mano, we've joked about the electronic music cabal that's going to overthrow Bored No More.
There is. I could see that.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Edit crying over pros for no reason is awesome, Brody. Yeah, man. I like certified air raid material too. That's awesome. When that came out, nothing sounded like that. That's a really cool record. Yeah. Edit's awesome. What's that? You ain't artsier than me. Yeah. Anyway, Edit certified air raid material. Ridiculous production. But yeah, man, I think when it comes to like I'll just say, if your production is good, like if you're good at what you do, and if the world like legitimizes your stuff, if it's competitive, because the thing is, if your stuff is not good these days, everybody's gonna know it immediately within 3 seconds because they hear the super hyper polished produced stuff, and even the lo-fi like gritty rock stuff that is popular is probably coming off a SSL desk or like a Neve, or they're using like really high-end gear or whatever. So if your stuff sounds bootleg, you're kind of out of the running. So it's kind of like, I think if you can pass the sniff test with people initially and they hear your music and it points back to something beautiful and transcendent, it's a conversation starter. I would say that music is hugely instrumental in me, no pun intended, and how I became a Christian. There was this dude who was nominally, just kind of Protestant, stoner Christian type guy. I don't know. I mean, these people exist. Like these people are out there. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Hippie Christian, and I mean, God bless him, great guy. And we would differ on a lot of things. Very like left-leaning. Goy slot burrito bar. How does one achieve the OVO sound? You probably have to go to a Diddy party, homie.
Yeah, no, I think the not to step it though. I think the OVO sound is a filter they apply. He's talking about Drake's producer. I think it's
yeah.
They like filter out the highs and the lows. Yeah, they filter. It's like a mid-range filter. Yeah.
No, but forgive me. I'm sorry. I'll just be very quick. But like, I met this guy. In Nashville, who was a musician, and he was a Christian, and he was living a Christian life, around me and in front of me. And his art is just extraordinary, and it really spoke to me. And it was a conversation starter because it was evident that there was something really different about him, and his art it had a transcendent quality that somebody just trying to get noticed by the scene, like it just make the thing that people would like. When you hear somebody's music and you can tell they're trying to appeal to someone, or they're trying to be liked. They're trying to make music to appeal to something out there. Like this guy was not doing that, and his lyrical content was very deep, and it's just it's art. Like, I mean, the dude is. Oh, it's the guy that
you sent me. I think you sent me his stuff. I think
I did. It's
freaking awesome.
It's nuclear. It's like dub influenced. You can't really call it Christian music because it doesn't really play by those tropes, but it's extremely beautiful. Yeah, maybe there's a way I could link his Bandcamp. I can't. Yeah, I don't know.
You could send it to Manny, and Manny could throw it in the.
I will. Yeah. Everybody, it would rock this guy's world because he's he never made it. You know what I'm saying? He was in Nashville, and I'm gonna post this in the chat. Deadworks.info. Hold up. Yeah. Give me 1 second.
Take your time.
It would be great, man. It would mean the world. It'd mean the world to this guy. This is incredible music. He made this anyway. Like, we're talking about like righteous propaganda and things, these sorts of things. Boom, just put it in the chat. Yeah, everybody check this dude out. It's incredible. But yeah. Like, is a conversation starter if you're different. Going back to what we were saying earlier, like when I was saying, being around people and being exposed to kind of just the condition of just the average person right now, in cities. If you stick out, it's different, and you can stick out for a lot of reasons that could be not so good. But I think if you stick out for Christ, that it's blessed, and if that can touch your art, then like big up, and God will give that stuff. God will bless it. I've seen it happen even in, non-Orthodox, quote unquote Christians, big time. Music is can be a powerful thing. I had some old label mates and current drum and bass producers that are like, well-established guys that, put out tracks, and they heard the Seraphim Rose thing, what they saw track. They heard that. And they were like, dude, like, I want this for my label and this and that. And I was like, no, I don't think so. But, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And they were like, and in my YouTube link, I have a link down to that Seraphim Rose talk, so it's kind of like if they're sitting there and with their dab rig listening at the, 200 times, listening to it over and over again.
Yeah.
That's cool. Can that happen every time? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's more about building a body of work that points back to
that was actually my original intention for starting to make music with even my band before I came back to Orthodox. I would thread in the lyrics because you just notice it, like sometimes you're just walking down the street and like you get an earworm and you start repeating the words in your head and like the song's playing in your head and you start realizing this person's talking about nothing, or they're like, whoa, that's pretty profound. I didn't really actually realize that. Like for example, John Lennon's song "Imagine" is pretty much the Communist Manifesto, but you don't realize it's a Communist Manifesto until you read the words out loud and you're like, wait a minute, this is Karl Marx. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And then the reverse is true too. And coming out of the New Age occult, you learn a lot about hypnosis, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, sound toning, binaural beats. All that stuff. So then when you start to see that, okay, we're doing that in church anyways, and it's like the positive way of using propaganda. It's a positive way of using subliminal hypnosis, and you can do that with the art that we make. And if you're making art with that in mind, and it doesn't even have to even be overtly Christian, it could just have some of that stuff in it, and people be like, what's this guy really talking about? And that it creates that conversation.
I would never put like weird binaural beats in like my music or anything like that. I would never really go there. You know, that's just me personally.
But binaural beats, but why though? Hold on, let's break that down, because it's actually often used. It's used in church. You just don't realize it.
You mean like dissonance and stuff like that?
Binaural beats is
like the secret frequencies and stuff.
Two different beats happening in each ear, off by just a bit, and your brain creates the third one. When it does that, your left and right side of the hemisphere of your brains are connected by something called the corpus callosum in the middle of your brain, and it allows the
not mine. I had a car accident. It was severed.
You got a metal plate right down the middle.
You can re-engage it that way. You can re-engage it that way.
Who's going to call me out on that?
That's what I mean by binaural beats.
Mano, what I'm saying is I wouldn't intentionally put anything in music to subvert someone's consciousness. You know what I'm saying? For a good or bad.
Does that. But music does that automatically. Now we're getting to a fun part. So if you look at the brain scan of musicians, I spent a lot of time on this. I love this subject. So if you look at the brain scan of musicians, different types of musicians, you see how the brain interacts. And if someone has written a song, performing the song, singing the song, and playing the song, that's the most amount of brain activity that occurs. Now, when that person rehears that song again without playing those instruments, the brain lights up in the exact same way. So when you listen to music on let's bring it to orthodoxy. So one of the big reasons why the domes are created the way they are, and they're using phi ratio and all that stuff, is because yes, it's in nature, it's God's language. We all know that. But if depending on where you are in the church, you're getting a totally different frequency bounce. So your brain's automatically using the concept of binaural beats without knowing it. So if, let's say you're in the church and you're not in the middle, you're on the right side or the left side, those sound waves will bounce in a particular way where the one side of your brain will receive them one way and the second will receive it the other. And you're inside your brain, a third will be created of space that's not actually there. So some of the tones you hear are not actually there. It's your brain creating that tone. So what I mean by subversion is if we're all subverted at all times, and when you're in church, that's what's happening. Sorry for rambling. You hit me on a subject I adore. So when you're doing all these things, you're already doing, even in your songs, you're already doing it. You just may not be aware of it, especially producers. 'Cause part of like panning left and right is the beginning of you using a binaural beat concept.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying in the sense like using the stereo field, there's no such thing as a center with headphones. Like for example, like there's no center. There's just when the same sound is playing out of both speakers, it feels like a center, but it feels There's no
you're creating that center. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with your vision. I mean, if you think your left eye, if you look out, adjust your left eye or adjust your right eye, you know. So you're combining your stereo field of vision to create like one singular, you know.
Yeah. I guess, Mano. I guess what I was saying is I meant that I would never like busy myself with some kind of like, oh, this frequency is going to do X, Y, Z, or some kind of cymatic type.
No,
thing
not that.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm not talking about that. That's not what binaural beats are. Not at all.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
No, that's helpful then.
So you would never put hidden messages with reverse dialogue at the end of your song.
I was putting Aleister Crowley and stuff when I was a
Burn
teenager.
your house
like
down.
Bass tracks. Like you can find these little snippets of Aleister Crowley saying stuff, and I would
even the Beatles.
Who was the first one to do that? Who was the one who like started the media panic over that? Was it the Beatles?
Oh, the Satanic Panic. The Beatles.
Did someone had a reverse
audio.
dead.
Paul is dead. Paul is dead.
Okay.
I can't remember this song. That was one of the first ones. There was a whole bunch of them because there's that conspiracy theory that Paul McCartney was killed.
The ears are different, and it's like whatever.
And then there is one track, but when you do play it in reverse, you do hear John Lennon say Paul is dead. Like you do hear it. I should play it on a
but I guess my point is would be the backwards masking stuff. People don't experience things in reverse, and I think that's going to be so far below the threshold of experience. It seems kind of weird, The Beatles were just weird. Those guys were no good. I love their music, great music, but man, they were creeps,
they were
right?
definitely an op for sure, 100%. Yeah. Well, that's another topic though. Yeah.
Indeed.
We'll definitely be getting into that.
What's the worst studio you ever had? Studio experience you ever had, Mano? Worst studio experience you ever had? I'm trying to juice some. I want to get something
juicy stuff
for the people. Like, what's the worst thing that ever happened in a studio?
Worst studio experience I ever had was the sound engineer was obsessed with doing everything digitally and wouldn't do anything out of the norm. And as I've described, half of my equipment was homemade. And it would have weird feedbacks. So the worst experience was this guy trying to convince me to play somebody else's guitar because he didn't like my guitar because it was homemade.
Yeah.
There was no real I'm like, why is there feedback or something? I can fix that. He goes, no, I just don't like how it looks. This I'm like, you're gonna make me. What producer does that? Or a sound engineer force a musician who uses his tool? No, here, use this other tool. That was my worst experience.
Yeah, stepping outside of his zone.
What's yours, Eric? What's the worst thing that ever happened?
I've had quite a few. We used to have a lot of late night sessions, really. I mean, I have horror stories about when I wasn't prepared, doing live sound was some of the worst experiences I've had, for sure, because anything can go wrong there. But as far as recording studio experiences, I had one experience. I was part of a music education facility that had a recording program, and my friend and I would at nighttime we would run sessions out of it. And we had these two girls come in who wanted to be a girl group or something. They were trying to be R&B diva girl group,
like SWV, Sisters with
Voice. And they were having us produce songs on the spot. They're like, make me something right now, and we would make something. No, that's not it. And so we'd make something else, and then my friend and I stepped outside for a second to take a break, and then some guys just came out of nowhere and started picking up chairs from the sidewalk and throwing them left and right. And apparently, my friend had an encounter with them previously. I've had some very weird situations. You can probably relate to that. But so we had to run back inside the studio to avoid, an altercation and continue with that miserable session. Working with artists who think that good music appears out of thin air is always the worst, because it's just like that. Why doesn't this sound like this reference point that, has no bearing to what we're doing right now? Mr. Producer, hey, Mr. Engineer, why can't you make me sound like Christina Aguilera or whatever? It's just silly stuff, You suck. Yeah. It's plugins can't fix everything, I mean, maybe now they could almost fix everything, but working with ungrateful artists has been the bane of my existence. A lot of that drove me away from the engineering field and into other areas.
That industry is kind of dilapidated. When I lived on,
it's over with because of home studios. Yeah.
When I lived on Music Row, a lot of those studios were closing up shop.
It's sad.
It was bad. But some people are making bangers in their bedroom. You are, Eric. You're making some great stuff.
I would argue that most people. I'm not referring to myself, but I would argue that if you really dig like a poll or a survey, you'd find that, you know, a lot of the good music coming out is done in not necessarily a bedroom, but like a project studio is what most people refer to it as, you know. Maybe they take it somewhere else for post-production, but like project studios are for sure the future. And I mean, why wouldn't they be? You have everything you need now, you know. A lot of it inside the box. And, you know, I agree with you on hardware and whatnot, but I mean, you do have quite a bit inside the box now. You can do a lot. So that's my take on that.
Genre.
Yeah, it does depend on the genre. I think for sure.
Genres a lot because like one thing that like for my favorite recordings are off the floor with a full band off the floor, even vocals recorded at the same time, and if they're not good, use them as scratch. Have the vocalist in a booth. That's my favorite way of recording. And like honestly, it took me recording our last album or our last EP, which I still haven't fully put out, to get the sound I wanted, and I wanted off the floor recording. So a lot of the stuff that like in the electronic world is very different than like in the band world. And I think like you could tell a live off the floor recorded album, it always sounds so much better. The energy is next level because the musicians are linked.
I would say if you have a song like in your heart, like if you wrote a song, if you're feeling it, you have a song, like sitting in front of a DAW is the worst thing you can do. Sitting in front of Reaper with a grid, like rip, your song is done. You need to do it with an instrument, and then it has energy to it. It has life to it. Like when I make a track, I can't do it like that because I'm doing it differently. And I play piano. I played piano for a very long time, at least since I was a little kid. But I mean, I don't really do that in my songs. But it's more like programming. Like you're building this little house, and it's got like the intro is the entryway, and there's a middle, and there's an exit. It's like you take the listener through a little zoo, But you can't do that with a song. Like
and part of why I dislike a lot of genre labels is like, for example, electronic music, right? Like I think if you said that, most people are going to think about house music or like dubstep, something. I look at more of like just a methodology. Like I'm a live musician by trade. So, I grew up doing bass, keys, drums, like multi-instrumental stuff. Even when I began doing more production, I would usually draw that in. So oftentimes I had an 8-track, like to your point, Mano, I had a Fostex 8-track. I would go in the basement. I had all the instruments laid out, and I would like record essentially a song on the 8-track, and then I would come upstairs and I would track those out into Pro Tools, which is what I use usually, and then I would kind of loop things up. I'm big on waveforms. I love working directly with waveforms, so I would chop it, up to a T. Basically, re-chop the drum part, bass part, everything, repitch things, repitch individual notes, make a new composition out of it. But it was live in nature,
Totally.
And so I think that you can definitely use electronic tools to create things out of audio, out of live audio,
Absolutely.
But once again, you can also, create, more generic electronic music as well. It's just really. You can go to Splice. You can go to Splice. You don't have to play anything. There's a new music service, and I don't know if you've heard about this, but you can basically have remote sessions with live session musicians, and so it's like it's marketed as, no, don't use a MIDI trumpet. You know what I mean? Get this guy to play the trumpet, like that kind of stuff. So that's kind of a cool shift, I think, away from the software synthesis stuff.
I miss playing in bands and playing with people. It's fun, dude. There's nothing. It's like writing a track in this computer. Sometimes it's not so fun, So jamming with people is a blast.
Totally.
When you start laughing when you're just playing and you're just so happy. It's just like, it's beautiful. That doesn't happen with my computer. If I'm laughing at my computer, I've gone around the bend.
Totally. When you're improvising
yourself,
and you're just jamming, and then in your head you're like, I'm gonna make this move, and everyone moves with you, and you're like, how did that happen? I love that feeling. I think you make a good point by bringing up the digital versus I meant it more like electronics, right? Music. I don't think the tools are the issue. I think it's the people and how their expectations that are the issue, right? Because you could use a lot of electronic tools in a very positive way. Because now I don't have a band, so I'm starting to do a lot of the stuff that an electronic musician would do, right? And when I mean that, I
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
that I would fit closer to the dub world because obviously my background's reggae. So even the way that dub music is pieced together, dub music is
dub's
still
a perfect
pieced together.
example.
Yeah, dub is still pieced together like it's a band. It's the one electronic art form that I still see. Oh, they're thinking like a band, right? And like when I used to write for my band, I would think totally different than when I used to write for a solo track. And then now that I'm recording it differently, my preference is always vinyl. Number one, always the best sound for me. You can't beat vinyl at all. So I would always think of like recording to tape, like 2-inch reel tape, then to vinyl. And what does that sound like? So when I would even like record things or think about things, I would think about the space on vinyl. But when you go to do it digitally, it's not there, right? So you have
Bro,
to
my boy that I was talking about, I shared you his music and I put it in the link. That's what he did. He used Reaper 2, and then he went from Reaper to 2-inch tape, then to vinyl. So he's got records on his site. But if you just listen to the Bandcamp, it sounds insane. It's just got depth.
I'm excited to check it out. I'm excited that you're really hyping them up. But I trust your taste, so that's why I'm like, this sounds great, you know.
Man, I think the real issue. I think the real issue, the reason it's hard to find music these days that we like as Orthodox Christians and just as, you know, whatever, like however you want to categorize yourself beyond that, is because the culture doesn't really produce a lot of people that are capable of independent thought or capable of trying really hard at something over a long period of time before they just give up and look back at the social media feed. Like, people don't have long attention spans and they don't have a capacity for suffering and frustration, especially not like doing things to an analog medium. Like, you're not going to sit there and be like, well, I don't want to record the song again to tape, you know, like, our culture doesn't really value the asceticism of the effort that goes into.
No, and when we didn't have everything at our fingertips, like, you know, the early 2000s or whatever, pick an era, like when you didn't have everything at your fingertips and you really had to, like you said, struggle to develop your craft, or, you know, the 90s. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm a millennial, so I don't know. It depends. I know we're all in different places, but I think we all have similar experience. We're in the same spot. We're the same person. I'm telling you.
That's right.
That's
what they say.
That's what they say. But
go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just saying, I think that, you know, having had to workshop stuff and just make do with what you have, like he said, you know, you don't have that as much now, so people don't develop that grit, you know.
There were these producers back in the day, like there were some cats. Maybe Mella will know who they are. Mella, you know who Quadrant was, and I was in a group with those guys, the Quadrant guys. Is Slowboy Whiteboard in the house? Yeah, Slowboy Whiteboard. You know Gino, so maybe you know who Quadrant is too. But there were these producers back in the day that were so fastidious. Yeah, Mella says, yeah, that's what's up, man. It's a small world. That's cool. But there was this guy Decimal, who took his own life. It's so sad. God rest his soul. But he was very you had these cats that were amazing producers, electronic music producers, that back when things were hard, before there was an internet to teach you how to do everything, you had to be a maniac and you just sit there and figure it out. And this guy, I think, had schizophrenia, real serious spiritual issues that have a medical counterpart. Who even knows? But yeah, if you look for a guy, Decimal with an S, Desimal, drum and bass producer.
Okay.
Crazy stuff, really powerful, amazing stuff. And I mean, it's like, man, yeah, those guys, I think those people now, I don't even think they'd be making music. I think people are so psychologically and spiritually kind of whipped up, you know, that I don't know that they would even be engaging in long form, dedicated creative activities due to social media and these other things that they would be spazzing out on. Yeah, there was some cats crazy.
Yeah, the incentive isn't there, really, I don't think.
Slowboy Whiteboard. Yeah, that's right, man. So there was a guy that I used to hang with named Josh who went by Corrupt Souls, and he was an amazing drum and bass producer, and he toured the world, and he was incredible. I'm talking Slowboy Whiteboard, and I believe I know Gino knew him, and if you knew Hunter, then Hunter knew him as well. But yeah, he took his own life. There were a lot of people that OD'd and just whatever,
Oh yeah, that is the scene for
very
that
sad.
for sure, man. For sure.
Anyway, sorry to be a downer, but I think
No,
that I think that what I was getting at, the sort of meandering prattling, was going in the direction of culture these days does not produce people that sit and try at things for very long. So the music you have to reach for, that's why, Mano, you're always digging back into this 90s and the 80s and the 70s, because we all intuitively know that something's missing and it used to be better, and we're not just being boomers, it's actually quantifiable. People aren't capable of doing hard things.
I have a point on that about drum and bass specifically. I don't know if you noticed, you probably have, but that drum and bass has been on the radio, not like classic drum and bass records, like major pop artists, commandeering drum and bass.
Yeah. Like Justin Bieber had a track that it was.
It's like the hot new thing. Yeah, there's been various artists. I started hearing it on the radio, and I said,
so you're telling me I have a chance to make it again.
No, I know. More so, I knew the world was ending when that occurred. Because the reason being is that I'm convinced that maybe after sometime around like 2010, there ceased to be anything new. It's all been just old. So you know how the 50s will come back in fashion, in style. Mm-hmm. Oh, now the 60s. Oh, everyone's wearing polka dots. And it's the same thing with music. And I've watched. I feel like I've watched mainstream artists like go through each decade. Like there was like a 60s hippie kind of revitalization and the 70s funk stuff. Yeah. The 80s was big. The Weeknd had like 80s songs.
Yeah.
And,
and
so
like
TikTok punks and such.
TikTok punks. And it got to the point where they literally went through 80s, 90s, 2000s, early 2000s, because even that came back, to the point where they had nothing left to dig for. So they went and found the last thing in the barrel, which was drum and bass, which no one ever gave a shit about excuse my language, for the history of because I grew up on it as well. I used to go to Sonar in Baltimore and see LTJ Bookham and MC Conrad and stuff. I remember it being the least cool thing.
Is the sign of the times. Oh yeah.
I remember it being the least cool thing when I was in high school, and like nobody knew what it was. And now you hear it on the radio. I said, "This is it." I said, "They've run out of every other idea in the world. They're digging at the bottom. They found drum and bass, and once that trend is done, there's nothing else to go to." Yeah. What are they going to do? Go to the 1930s or something? Like ragtime's going to come back.
It had more of a UK home base too as well. So now it's creeping 100%. In. It was two-step and dubstep and all that kind of stepped in for a minute. I think you guys are making great points. I think it has a lot to do with the technology. It has a lot to do with the dumbing down of a society, but also it has to do with the consumer, because the consumer is promoting a lot of crap, right? So they'll go and support that stuff because they don't have the tools necessary to appreciate something with depth. Just the same as they won't read a book, they'll watch or even watch a full movie anymore. Like you can't even put a classic movie from like put on Deer Hunter, and half of the people in the room are going to be bored, right? But it's so because they can't take in a nuance, the in between stuff, right? And when you have quality music in front of you, whether it's the sound of it, how it's recorded, the content of the lyrics, or all of that stuff, people can't appreciate that stuff no more. You know what I'm saying? They just can't. So they want something linear, over compressed, super loud, and really catchy. They look at music as an accessory. They look at it like, what shirt are you going to wear, or what necklace are you going to wear? They don't really think of it as because back in the day, or if you're a real musician or a real artist, it's part of your identity. Not that it should make your identity, but like there's something about the type of music you listen to says something about you. I listen to a bajillion different genres, even more than I'd play on SOS radio. I cover a lot of different areas in terms of decades and this and that. And like, I'm like you when you say that you don't like to pick one genre you're into. The only reason I gravitate to punk, what I like most about that, it isn't even the sound, it's the aesthetics. It's the DIY with ethics, morality, and don't be a bitch. Don't be a poser. Because back in the day, you would get your ass handed to you if you were a bitch. That doesn't happen anymore. Someone can watch a TikTok video and pretend to be like Sid Vicious, and he's Sid Vicious. Like that, you could never pull that off in the back in the day. Also, the artists are not allowed to make an ass of themselves anymore. They don't do it. Like I've been on stage and made a complete ass of myself.
Oh yeah.
Year after year after year, and I still got up there until one day people were like, "Yo, what are you doing there?" You know what I mean? Like that's something that artists aren't doing. They're not learning their craft by making mistakes and sounding, or like putting on like a track and be like, "Yo, that sucks, bud." Like someone, you guys remember that? You walk into the studio, you're all excited, you play a beat, check out this, and everyone's kind of like, "Nah, dude, it's garbage, man.
That ain't it, dog."
It's yeah. And you're like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking?"
Yeah.
You need that. You need that.
For me back in the day, that was smoking and like Addies and stuff like that too. You think you're killing it, you think you're crushing it, you think that it's so dope, and it's not good. And you know it's not good when everybody listens to it, and no one really has anything to say, you know?
Yeah, you're working on something at 3 a.m. You wake up the next day and you're like, what was I doing? It sounds despicable.
Yeah. This is cool. 1, 2, 3, 4 AGDSDF project file. Yeah, something like that. It's like,
That's so true. Fire. Trust me, fire.
Yeah. It's like, and you should probably quit smoking weed.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you guys are both like drum and bass heads like crazy. I was more jungle out of that world for sure. I was like straight up jungle and rugga jungle. I was all into that.
Oh man.
Late 90s,
totally,
late 90s rugga jungle was sick.
Yeah, me too.
And
Big
then
time.
I took a break from it, went back to it, and that like dubstep started to come in, and I was like at a dubstep party, and then all of a sudden they're like crushing like Sizzla and Capleton. I'm like, what is this? What is this? I remember hearing it and I'm like, I don't know, but it's okay. It's okay. But classic drum and bass, classic jungle is sick.
So good.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
love that. I love the vibe. I mean, because there's something rebellious in it. And I don't know. It really appealed to me, and I just kind of went, man. I went wherever it went because I was trying to make it a career, which was in hindsight foolish because I learned a lot being like at the highest levels of that genre and having friends that created it and innovated in it, and being in rooms with those guys and chilling with them. I learned that everybody fit into these categories of like, you're a trustafarian, you know what I'm saying? You're a trustafarian. You could be a pie eating contest judge. It doesn't matter what you do. Of course, be a drum and bass DJ. Money is not a problem for you. So there's that guy, and then there's like the lifer who was kind of like me, the guy who was well, I'm just gonna grind it out. I'm gonna make it eventually. I'm just gonna keep rocking, and that doesn't end well. I don't think that ends well. You have to get off that train. And then there's the people who like have a grown-up job and do it. They have their grown-up job and then they do their music stuff on the side, especially in the electronic music world. But the electronic music world is driven forward by the trustafarian, because these days for things like the EDC or Ultra Music Conference, things like this, these people have to pay to play. They're not paid to play, they pay. It's payola. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, why is it stagnant? Why is it whack? Well, there's layers to why a lot of it's whack, because there's it's payola. You know what I'm saying? Like so many things, like so many magazines, like all kinds of things are payola. It just is what it is.
100%.
I don't know. I can't remember why I was talking about that, but.
No, it's
one thing to add to that. Sorry to jump in there. Just, my apologies. Post, you go right after.
No, you're good. You're good. Go.
Is the actual where you would consume the content. Like for example, rugga jungle and juggle in particular doesn't make sense until you go to a sound clash. When you're in that room and the room is moving and everything is vibrating and you have to hold your beer because it's like moving down the thing, then you're like, I get it.
It sounds completely different too. The frequency separation from the tops and the subs, it sounds completely different.
Totally.
I used to have a buddy that was a bartender at a club that played electronic music, and I would go in there during the day while he was cleaning up and stocking the bar, and I would take my laptop on the dance floor and I would like test stuff out, because it does, that music sounds completely different on a system than it does on like your headphones or whatever.
Yeah, talking about embarrassing stories. I had a little production group for like 8 years. Me and these guys, we were trying to make a go of it, and we would participate in beat battles in Washington D.C.
Okay.
I don't know if you've probably seen beat battles, but
Yeah.
each person stands on one end of the stage, and you pick your track, and talk about something not sounding like you thought it would in front of a whole venue of people.
Bro, that's the worst.
Competitive environment.
Oh man, yeah,
some real embarrassing scenarios, and people there, they let the crowd essentially judge. So you can imagine if you
the crowd
like
is
something.
right every time. The crowd is right every time. When it comes to the Sonics, if your stuff sounds like junk, it's over.
Yeah.
I remember staying up, finishing a tune, and giving it to you. Heard of Noisia? You heard of Pendulum? You heard of these drum and bass groups?
Yeah, I've heard of Pendulum. Yep.
Yeah. So like, my buddy was bringing these groups through before, a lot of them before they were big, and I remember giving my tunes to DJs like, please play my track. They were all on CDJ 800s or CDJ 1000s back then, and I would pass them off CDs, and then they would like bring my track in, and it was like the quality just went down. You hear it on the system, and you're like, oh no. This sounded good at home. It sounded kind of good at home, but I don't know, man. Soundboy murderation is what it was.
Totally. Rewind.
It's humbling, man. Soundboy has to get murdered because you think you're big stuff, and some people really are really good at these things, and you try to get in there with them, and you find out, you play your track next to theirs, and you're like, I don't know, it's just better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Totally.
Back in the day, I think a lot of the things that I was struggling with was loudness. I have it down now. Like my stuff is too loud. Like my stuff doesn't need to be any louder now. I'm good. I figured it out. But when I was younger, I couldn't get my stuff loud.
Oh, it was a nightmare. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, like feeling inadequate. Yeah, that was a nightmare for a while there. There's a lot of once you figure out your recipe or your methodology, then it's like, thank God, just let me stick to this chain and make sure I do it every time.
Yeah, mine's a little different every time, and I've got the analog hardware, but I think what cats were doing back in the day, especially in the drum and bass scene, is they were redlining the DAT tapes, like like a lot of the rock and stuff that you guys would have listened to in the 80s and 90s, recording to a DAT. And what people would do to get it that extra little bit louder, I know, especially in the drum and bass world, is they would just slam the input, the converters on the DAT. They'd clip off the peaks, and then you get this really crunchy, cool upfront sound. So all the drum and bass guys were doing that.
Yeah, they have plugins, specifically to model that now. Like I think standard clip is one I use, but.
Oh man, I'll give you some secret sauce right here, dude. Just redline, get the 90s version of Logic Audio from before Apple bought it on PC, and just redline the master and like a couple dBs. And because I would never do that because Red was clipping, and I was like, you must never clip.
Leave 6 dBs of headroom. Yeah.
But it's like you just do it, and then you're like, that's exactly how I want it to sound.
It just sounds better, man.
Yeah. But if you're not redlining, you're not headlining.
One of our recordings, we actually tried doing the final mix down like the old school way. You guys know what I'm talking. Everyone's
you're
on the
robot
board,
now.
and they're like, okay, bring up this and bring up that, and you're doing it live. You're doing it live, and like you know what I'm talking about. You guys ever seen that?
Oh yeah. Like riding the decks.
Yeah. But as it's being done live, like after it's done, that's it. You can never do it again.
Yeah.
Mine is?
Yeah.
Mine's going out?
Oh. A little bit, yeah.
Oh, my lag. It's a lag. Sorry.
What
Mexican internet.
What were you saying? You were talking about live fader? Right?
Yeah, live fader and panning, like live fader and panning to the master, like to the master.
And, yeah.
Honestly, that's how I do my stuff.
Nice.
If you go to my Instagram, there's a top-down video of me doing that on one of the things.
I've seen you. So what are you mastering to? What are you mastering to? Like to tape or to digital?
I'm recording the master out of the mixing console into a computer. But all the things that are making the sounds are the devices and the analog stuff. And then I'm just recording it into a computer. But you just do it.
So real dub.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing with the drum and bass stuff. Yeah, so that's how it's being made. And it's kind of fun in the video. It's fun for me. I don't know if it's fun for anybody else, but in the video you can see like I'm panning things and they're going, and I'm hitting like delay sends. It's just, it keeps it
Yeah,
more
yeah,
animated. Because if I were to sit there and draw all that stuff in, it wouldn't have the same swagger. It just wouldn't be interesting. You know,
Mhm.
I'd be like, I'm drawing in the automation, and it's just, you know, it's not as spontaneous. It can't be driven by your feelings, you know. So
No, 100%. I like to run my master out to the SP404. Sometimes you can get some really cool sound off that. It's like a vinyl simulator and some other effects on it. But sometimes something will just color, you know, it just colors the audio in a certain way. You can't really necessarily quantify why that is, but it like I said, there's no rules, you know what I mean? If it sounds good, it sounds good.
No
are
rules.
people still vibing with our production nerd talk?
Totally.
Okay?
It's been steady.
Right.
It's been steady. So that's good. I think people appreciate this a little bit more than you guys think, though. So don't worry about it. Don't worry.
Okay.
Also, when's the last time you guys recorded a band?
A full band for me, I mean, I used to do that quite a bit for a job. I used to record my band as well. I was in like a smooth jazz band. And I recorded us. I would run in, I would get all the tracks set up.
See that?
And I listen to like the Rippingtons and all type. Yeah, I'm a weird guy when it comes to music, but I would run in, get all the tracks set up. I'd hit record, run back in, pick up the bass, and record everyone, come back in, tweak things. Nowadays, I really record myself. Obviously, not at the same time, but I just multi-track, layer it. But yeah, as far as a full live band, it's been a little bit.
I recorded bands in Nashville, but when you're making albums in Nashville, if you're an artist, you generally not any bands in the mix. You have the drummer come lay it down, and then people will chop the best snare and the best kick, and you just across.
Drum replace, hit replace,
Yeah, exactly. And then the same thing with guitar. You just end up comping stuff, which is why a lot of that music sounds so boring, I would say, is because in the music capital of the world, in those studios, unless you're like Smashing Pumpkins, unless you're like a band that is like got clout as a performing group, it's mainly just this comping and session players and comping. So it's kind of boring,
Yeah, you can hear it.
That style is the worst. I hate that. One of the guys tried to record us that way. I hate that. I like live off the floor recording band is my favorite.
Well, I mean, all the albums from the 70s and the 80s, all the great rock and the stuff from the 90s that we enjoyed so much, like, because the thing is, like, I meet a lot of catechumens and young Orthodox brothers that are really cool, and like, and they will try to put me onto some new rock, and it's like, I just can't get into it because it's very heavily multi-tracked. It's all digital, and it's it's not funky at all, like in the sense that it has any like grit to it. It's just, even the metal is so antiseptic. It's like the musical version of like a dentist chair or something. It's just the most like dead thing. But it's like, bro, you ever listen to like Typo Negative or like any of that stuff back in the day? It's just like slush, or like Sleep, dude, like Sleep, like Justin Sleep. Like just sludgy, lumbering. Wow, like, it's awesome. Like,
Sleep is great.
Yeah, Sleep is awesome, but I mean, that stuff is like, that's toast, So it's like young people will try to put me on to like some metal or whatever, and I never really listen to, and I'm just like, I can't rock.
Yeah, I think rock has suffered. Oh yeah, rock has suffered probably the most in terms of just this new landscape.
Well, it's oppressive, Eric. It's white and it's oppressive, and that's
probably why. Yeah.
It's not even really white, man. In its core, but it is. It's over because it's high effort. It's high effort, and it requires people to not be atomized. To be in a band, there has to be some synergy, between people and relationships.
Yeah, I think rock was one of the musics earlier when I was talking about like music having more than just the technical correctness of it. Rock was one of the styles that it succeeded when it had something else to it. It had a mystery to it. It had that actual like edge to it. When you took that out of it, the technicals of it weren't enough to keep it alive.
Yeah, like Polyphia. You ever listen to like Polyphia or something like that?
Yeah,
it's like
pure technical. Yeah,
it's so tiresome. It's like there's so many notes, but it like I feel nothing, and I don't know if it's me or if it's the music.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with some musics. I mean, like orchestral music. you know, a lot of technical jazz. Like that stuff can exist just on its own merits. Some music requires like a soul put into it, you know, or else it's not going to run, or else it doesn't have a point to exist. The whole point of rock was that it was edgy, it was new. And frankly, similar things happened with rap music. You know, when rap came out, it was like, it had this edginess to it. It had this bravado to it, this character to it. Now that it became at some point the most popular, the most streamed form of music. And at a certain point, it lost that edge to it. And I think it's going the way of the dodo. And now you see country's become the most.
I'll listen to Tyler the Creator, Saint Chroma, and it was the
his
most
new
hideous,
album.
It was the most hideous assault on my ears.
Yeah, he's trying to do like this hyper maximalist thing, but it was like with like soul instrumentation. I was like, that's not the combination, man.
it was bad. I think people are reaching for just weirdness now. And
people want to be different. They still want that edge. They want that difference. But like I said, I'm not convinced that there's been any new revelation in music since 2010.
And the rap guys that are trying to be crazy, like him, and then like who's the other one? JPEG Mafia. Are you familiar with JPEG Mafia?
Yeah.
So he just had a music video drop that's like mocking an Orthodox baptism. It's insane. Like, look it up or don't.
That would have been cool in 1994 or something, like on MTV.
You're out there with the censor, like an Orthodox censor, and it's just so weird. Man.
I've seen some people do that. Yeah, they're dying for the old day. They're dying for the old days where it was an actual counterculture, and it's just not gonna. It's not gonna happen. Like, A, there's no new idea, and B, it's just, as we know, like. There's nothing. There's that heart is not in it anymore. Go ahead.
Girl Hex, Childish Gambino's stuff that's like a departure, like that last album he did, and I don't listen to any of that music really, but the last album he did was kind of like alternative rock, like it was like a Weezer album. It was crazy, and it was like actually like I was like, that's really cool. Like respect, man. Like you're doing.
Does that a lot, but what I find he does is he just goes like, so there's a difference between inspiration and imitation. We live in a culture full of imitation, not inspiration. The reason why we've killed off inspiration is because there's a connect to God, whatever you want to call that. For us, we're Orthodox, we're fine with that. And the more that you're connected to that, right? And if you're a secular artist, whatever you call source or the all or whatever you call it, wherever the music comes from, a musician always knows. A musician knows that it's not coming from them. If they're doing it 100%. Right, you sit down. All of a sudden, a flash happens. A song is in your head. You write it. You put it down, and you're like, I have no idea where this came from. Or you write a song that takes you 3 or 4 years to realize what you were really talking about. I've done that many times. And the only way that new music comes out, new art, new literature, new movies, all this stuff, new ideas, is by having that connection to God, number one. And number two, understanding the difference between imitation and inspiration. Most people are always looking to imitate, even if they don't realize it. It. So that's why if you play like certain music to someone, like I know certain things I've made, people will be like, I'm not going to like that. I'm like, it's not because it's not good. I know when my music's not good, and I'm not saying that, or other people's music. I could hear someone else's track, and I know when it's going to be a popular hit or when it's a real hit. And I know that the ones that are real hits, they take a little bit more effort. And the average listener, the average person isn't interested in that. They're interested in how is it imitative? What does this sound like? What's this like? And they want it because
I will say, man,
it's easy.
When I was in Nashville and when I would do like rights at Warner Music and at Capitol, and I'd go into these places, every day would start with the musicians, the writers, and the artists. We go into a room or a studio and you start writing, and they're like, okay, what's popular right now? Like what's hot right now? Let's do it like that. Let's make a Frankenstein where we take aspects of this and aspects of that. But if I went in there and I'm like, yo, let's do like an old Sun House style, like just stomp and clap. Let's just stomp and clap and record with one mic. They're going to be like, you're mentally ill and you should just leave, So if you try to bring anything outside of this imitative paradigm, it doesn't go anywhere. It just doesn't go anywhere. I think that's the power of kind of doing it yourself and doing it from home.
Absolutely.
And
sometimes you have to educate your audience.
Did you ever see Quiznos? You know Quiznos, the subs?
Subs?
Yeah.
Do you remember those commercials? The commercials that had we're Quiznos subs. And the weird hamsters like playing guitar, and it was
Remember
those?
I remember that.
Like you could never No, Joseph, I'm in Florida. You could never like pitch that to like an advertising agency or like, an account manager. You just have to make it in After Effects and go, here it is. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to do anything original now. People might not see the vision and they might not see where you're going with it. You just have to do it and then turn it in. But there's not a lot of people worth collaborating with in the secular world because they're trying to imitate something or their brain is mush and they're not getting enough dopamine hits to do the hard stuff. That's just my I don't know. That's just my
for sure.
I think the number one thing to just follow up on that before Mano says something is just like confidence, like self-confidence essentially is the most critical skill for an artist to have, or not even skill, like character trait really. You have to just not care and just you have to have a deep reason, like Mano said, like you can't, if you're not connected to a spiritual source, then the music is just going to be, like you said, commodity. And I would argue that some of that old rock music, was connected to something. It was connected to some sort of spiritual source. It might not be the one that we want to be connected to. The satanic panic, right? But I mean, the fact is they were connected to something real, whether it's good or bad. So you can't take that connection to a real objective thing out of it. And when you are connected to something real, objective, a true spiritual reality, for example, then you don't care. Like you do have pure self-confidence in what you're doing. And you have an artistic confidence, and once that exists, then no one can knock you off your path. Like, I don't really care what people think about my music. Frankly, it sounds kind of weird, but I kind of make my music for myself to listen to.
Dude, your snare sounds are weak. I'm just trying to trigger you. I'm trying to trigger you as a producer. That's the last thing.
Hey, you can't. That's why I use claps sometimes. Sometimes the snare doesn't. You gotta use a clap.
Hey, Eric, I really like it when how all the instruments come in your songs. The snare like goes away.
Actually, you know what?
That's an interesting production choice.
What my favorite thing is a rim shot. You'll probably might notice that. Like I'm obsessed with rim shots. I'm obsessed with rim shots, man.
They're key, dude.
Can't live without a rim shot.
You're talking to reggae, man. Reggae, dude.
You notice that a song will be dated by its snare. A snare will date a song.
True.
The production,
100%. But you know what? True. Like sometimes those old corny snares, sometimes it hits. Like, it's weird. Like something might, in a certain
define
context.
Corny snare.
Let me think of a good one. Like old 90s house snares.
I got one. You guys remember the Cars Drive? Who's gonna drive you home?
Yeah.
That's got a big like dubstep pendulum, white noise sidechain gated to it. It sounds amazing, But there will be some snares that were greater than their time period.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100%. Luckily, you can always swap it out. Unless you're performing live.
Where you position the snare in the mix matters too.
Yes,
people don't realize you have vocals and snare like very close to each other. If you have at least in the genres I like, the snare has to be almost as loud as the vocals to keep everything in the middle. I love it.
Oh yeah, I mean I sidechain I sidechain like almost everything off the snare. I use track spacer, so like when the snare hits, everything else gets ducked. Maybe the vocals. So I'm like, I want to hear.
Your sounds are socially distanced.
Yeah. You got to put them all in their proper place. Everything has its position.
Let me ask you this though. I have an interesting philosophical point that I just want to interject real quick. Eric or Post, if a bunch of monsters are running at you, is it scarier if they're all touching or if there's like 10 feet between them?
No, 10 feet, 100%.
10 feet?
100%.
I'm thinking about like a bunch of monsters like all like
well, no, because then they're spread out and they can flank you, I mean, it depends on strategically how you look at it.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the side chaining stuff, like there's a temptation for me to use stuff like that sometimes, but sometimes I kind of feel like a lot of modern drum and bass can be like, and I'm talking specifically about drum and bass because like that's kind of what I know. But a lot of modern drum and bass is like they start with like the heaviest side chaining and a lot of house music too. And it's kind of like almost a band-aid for like bad songwriting. Because
it can be for sure. Yeah, it can.
You're a musician, so you know that like in arrangements, like a funk arrangement, there's like a pocket. So
you're supposed to leave your own space. Yeah, I'm a bass player, and that's 100%. Bass playing is really filling in that little space, you know. Finding your place, because everyone else writes their part first. So but no, to each his own. Like I said, I mean, I think some things are probably not the greatest in a certain song or context, and in other ones it might work, you know.
John Cage said that you can't play one note of the piano without telling the whole history of the piano, and I really feel that. And I think that when it comes to sound selection, you know, especially in any kind of music or picking an instrument for an arrangement, you're calling this cultural heritage into the listener's mind and an awareness of the ontology of the instrument, if you will, right? And I think that's really interesting. Because like picking a snare for a song, you know, because we got here from talking about snares, this is proper nerdy stuff. Like I've got a track I'm working on right now. I'm trying to finish it, and I don't know what the snare sound should be. I have no idea at all. I'm like deathly afraid to like. It's so close to being done, but the snare.
Hey, luckily you have a folder of 300 different choices. So you know.
I got floppy disks.
You probably have more.
I hate having that much choice, man.
I know the choice kills you. Yeah, having less choice. You're right. Less choice is always best.
I hate it. I like it simple. Even like the old recordings techniques. I like them simple and easy. And, you know, not that I use them all the time, but I hate having too many choices. Way too many.
Yeah, like you're just going through kick drums.
How about we give it about like 10, 15 more minutes and we'll wrap it up? Is that cool with
That's
you, gentlemen?
perfect, because I have 10% left on my battery. So
we're not
if I lose 1% a minute, then you know we should exist. We should be able to make it to the end goal.
Okay, cool.
How do you guys? What do you want to talk about? You want to switch it up?
One more thing to that.
Yeah.
For the only thing I wanted to mention about that was also like because it's not about like electronic music versus like band music, but there is a difference because I've worked with both. Like a couple guys in my band were like all electronic guys, and then there was band guys, and we would always have these conversations. Another one is like when you're writing, because you just said I write bass first. When I write a song, the first thing I think of is the bass, like the actual instrument.
Me too.
And that's usually unusual for songwriters, because unless they're a bass player. And I have the utmost respect for drum and bass, like not the genre. I mean that.
There you go.
But I mean the instruments. For me, those two things are pivotal, and I build off of that. And one thing I noticed that, because it's not as easy to do it in electronic music, is like when you're talking to a bass player when you're playing in a band scenario, you tell them like behind the beat or in front of the beat, depending on whether you're playing reggae or this and that. And that small change is the biggest change, and only musicians know it, but the audience knows it with the way that their feet move. They don't realize it's there.
I played a ton of reggae growing up. I was 13. I had a Bob Marley flag on my wall of my bedroom. My parents were like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" But I was a bass player, and I played a lot of reggae, and like I always would turn my tone knob all the way down and just get that dub effect. And I would like palm mute the string, and I would play with my thumb, and it was like that little dum, 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 dum. And I would always play right behind the beat. You know what I mean? Like, I know exactly what you're saying, like slotting it in. And
you guys ever listen to Massive Attack, Mezzanine? You know that track Angel, that you are my angel. Low flat wound string tone.
Yes.
All the way down to the coolest bass tone ever. It just sounds like subsonic. It's great.
Yeah, dub bass was like one of my formative influences, just like in terms of, and to this day, I my bass is leveled too high in most cases, because of that. I just like I have to hear
your mixes sound really good, man.
I like
you have good
lines.
mixes. They're always really clean, neat mixes.
That's the first thing that caught my ear. Was bass. My first thing that caught my ear about your tracks are bass.
Bass in your face.
Always. I think I have I mentioned on a couple streams. I'm like the bass 3. Well, thank you, Tatiana. Much obliged. Recorded through an 8-track tape to digital. Awesome. I like that. I'm using an 8-track right now.
Hell yeah.
Using my 8-track right now. I love those things. All right, gentlemen. Final thoughts. Anything you want to finish off with? You could be even like starting another like point or anything like that. Whatever is on your minds. Rock and roll. I guess we'll.
Yeah, I
start
want to
this-
make a final point about
Yes.
something you said earlier, because I was going to wind back to it. But like when you mentioned and you've mentioned this before too, as like when you became returned to orthodoxy, etc. Like you didn't know how to carry your music with that, and didn't know what style, how to incorporate it. I had a similar experience, and where I had to kind of say, like, how do I do this as a Christian? Not that making music is wrong or something, but like, where do I fit in, and how do I do it in a way that doesn't seem corny? I came to a conclusion that ultimately I'm going to continue to do what I do, the same genres and everything, because I had this thought in my mind about, the story of St. Patrick going to Ireland, and how they had this pagan culture, and essentially they retained aspects of that culture that fit with the religion, that fit with Christianity. They didn't just wholesale throw it away. And I have that thought about a lot of things. What I want to see, because my favorite thing is promoting Orthodox artists, musicians, seeing people find their vocation. That's my favorite thing. I'll promote anyone if I feel like their intentions are right. What I want to see is that kind of attitude where, it's not, because I'm with you on the punk thing, the aesthetic, the DIY aesthetic. I think there was a lot of overlap with Orthodoxy, and so you're able to keep a lot of the good things from it. I want to see that with everything, with all these other cultures. I don't want to say, punk is a unique culture and it's the only culture that fits into Orthodoxy, which I don't think you're saying that per se, but I want to see more embrace of all these different subcultures. Every one of them has something you can keep, some good that you can keep, that we can bring in, or more so draw it into the fold, under that banner. But drum, take your pick: electronic music, acoustic music, jazz. All of it has some value, and so that's my big thing, is just being like an umbrella, and just don't throw this stuff away because we consider it secular, or we label it a certain way. Bring it in. Bring it under the fold, and if there's stuff that's good that you can keep that correlates with Orthodoxy, then because that's the way that you
the cattle on 1,000 hills belongs to the Lord, right?
I think his phone just died.
It did. I think we're alone now. but you know what's cool? What's really cool is he got to finish his thought, and it's a really good thought. I totally agree with that. I think
total mic drop.
Yeah, it was a good mic drop. I think that like the cattle on 1,000 hills belongs to the Lord. It is there's something redeemable, like he was saying, in all that we do. How do we tap into that? I think you have to have a spiritual father to help you through it, because your ego is going to be messing you up, and people that are just kind of trying to fly blind and just be like, well, I'm just going to be this, like, I'm just going to be Tatiana. What song? I don't know.
I think she's talking about the Massive Attack.
Oh yeah, it's so good, man. What a good album. But it's like having that spiritual father, having that guidance. That's a really helpful thing, because if you just kind of like think you're, if you trust yourself to do it, man, what can happen to you as a musician is you just go blind. Like before I was a Christian, I still fight with pride a lot, for sure, and just all the things that are natural to people. But musicians, man, being prideful, that is like, I think that's especially if you're good at something, can be very difficult to stay grounded and stay humble and attract the grace of God through your humility, and not be like, I'm the man or whatever. It's just easy to slip into this.
No, absolutely. Well said. And it's something that we have to remind ourselves constantly and consistently. So I like that you mentioned having a church father and passing things by the church father, and like why you're doing it matters and all that stuff. So I think you're 100% correct there.
Father Turbo's a good person, a good touchstone to as well, yes. Because there's going to be some monastics and priests out there. My spiritual father is great for this, but there's going to be some, like I was talking to Father Peter Hears the other day about some stuff, and we're friends. I guess I don't know. We have some kind of relationship, and he's amazing, and I've done some work for him in the past, and I was talking to him. And I sent him that Seraphim Rose thing, and we were talking about a ton of other stuff too, and he just never really circled back to it, There's just going to be some people in the Orthodox world that are going to be like, I don't really know what to do with that. Probably going to be the same for punk rock too, There's some people that are you know, that this is going to be like, it's different. It's just they're, you know, like I'm not going to take myself down to the monastery tomorrow and be like, calling over some priest monk and be like, hey, you want to listen to some of my beats? They're orthodox inspired jungle. Like, no, we're not doing that. You know, there's a context for these things. And I think the context is like connection, like with you, like I connected with you because you're into music. And, I have some godchildren that I connected with through like cultural things as well. So
For sure,
you know,
it's important.
There's a value to these things, you know, and we got to just know, we got to know when to get out of the way, and we got to know when to stop making music and pray, you know, or whatever.
No, I that's a very good point, because it reminds you of you know,
Christina said,
yeah,
don't do that. Yeah, exactly. I know, I'm not going to.
It brings you back to home base. It kind of centers you and puts everything back into perspective.
Yeah.
All right, CYPRN, thank you so much for doing this.
Bro,
really
it's so fun.
it.
Yeah, it's so fun to
We're
talk.
do it
We gotta
again,
all
man.
get together in person one day.
100%. Oh, that's happening. Don't worry. I'm making that happen. We're gonna have the spoon bus driving across the U.S. and we're gonna all meet up, and then you guys meet us in Texas for a big, huge festival for sure.
That sounds amazing, dude. I'm hoping there are less dystopian days ahead. I'm cautiously optimistic, but still very cautious.
Me too. And if there aren't, still we'll put on a great party in Texas. Either way.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Dude,
brother.
Awesome, brother. Thank you for chopping it up.
No problem, brother. Have yourself a great night. It was a
See you
pleasure
next time.
talking to you. Adios. All right, guys, that is the end of that panel. I really enjoyed that conversation. Obviously, I'm a music geek. I really, I will always talk about stuff like that. A lot of good points were made, and a lot of things to take home, especially understanding like some of my final thoughts is keeping in mind why we're doing. I mean, I guess it ties itself back to the whole reason, like what I've just the medium in general. Like, why do we do these podcasts? Why do we make music? Why do we make videos? Why do we watch this movie? Why do we write this book? What are our intentions and why are we doing it? I think that all of those things really, really matter, and it shows oftentimes, not always, it shows oftentimes, especially in the end, why someone makes you know, the podcast they make, what kind of music they make, and this and that. Keeping in mind that it is a spiritual thing. You know, God created this amazing world that we live in, and a lot of the beauty is there because of, and part of that beauty comes from us creating art, and having that connection and that ability to do it for those right reasons. And I think it shows in the art that's being made. I really like the point of like making sure that it's not just one style of music, as long as it's orthodox content and it's you know, promoting all those thoughts and ideas. So I agree. It shouldn't just be about punk. It shouldn't just be about hip hop. It shouldn't just be about electronic music. It should be all of it. If it's coming from a good place, if it's coming with good intent and it's good art, it should be put out there. Also, artists should be cautious and kind of really ask themselves, why are they making the art they're making? And is it good? Because that's not always the case. You know what I mean? That's not always the case. And a point that I was making earlier that we all kind of touched upon is getting to know the reasons and understanding the genre you're listening to, the artist that's making it, their message and their intention. Sometimes that will change how you consume that piece of art. Like we were saying earlier, sometimes when you get to know somebody, an artist or whatever, you may want to know their music and be a little bit more intimate with it, or their art in general, or less. The example I gave was like, I have a hard time listening to Springsteen now. But then again, I'll listen to some artists that maybe I judged really quickly. Here's an example. If Joseph Beard is in the chats, let me know right now. You're gonna love this comment. If Joseph Beard is in the chats, let me know. If not, we'll make sure he watches this last part. So for example, is like sometimes certain genres you might be like, I don't like that genre. It's not my thing, and you really don't like it. But then sometimes it's a genre you don't like per se, but you kind of go into it and listen to it for like the craft. Is this artist really creating something? And like maybe like I'm not a huge fan of this type of genre, but I can listen to it and look at it from a different perspective and go, okay, I now appreciate this art a little bit better. What I'm getting at is sometimes a genre does suck. Like for example, I have a hard time finding any trap song that I really enjoy. I've done my best. I think the intention behind most of that is kind of not good. But here's the comment that I was going to make for Joseph Beard. I'm not a fan of post-hardcore, as I've been very clear. I'm talking about like modern post-hardcore. I'm not talking about like terror and stuff. I'm talking about like post-hardcore, what people might not like hearing, emo, screamo style and all that stuff. Not a big fan of it. I've openly said that 100 times on the show. Some of those bands I just can't listen to at all. And because of it, it was hard for me to listen to some of the, and sorry if it gets clipped, let me just be very clear. The genre, the specific genre, as soon as you hear a certain genre, you hear the sound, you turn your brain off, right? So a lot of people are like that, right? And for me, hardcore, emo, screamo, like that. I don't want to imitate it now because my voice is busted up. I could do a really good job of imitating. But you guys know the kind of bands I'm talking about. So then when I first heard Holy Name, that's all that I heard. When I first heard Holy Name, all I heard was that genre of the guy that sat next to me at Sony BMG, the record label, and he would constantly play these types of bands. Like I can't even remember half of their names anymore, but it's like the Alexis on Fire stuff and Onward, that style, that emo screamo stuff. That's funny. I just said Alexis on Fire, and Antonio Slash just commented Alexis on Fire. That genre after, even Alexis on Fire was okay, but then there was a lot of these like cheesy bands. Later, I wasn't a big fan of them. Especially there was like a lot of the Jesus hardcore stuff. I really wasn't into that. So when I first heard Holy Name, that's all I heard. That's all I heard was that sound. But then I sat down and read a lot of the lyrics. I'm like, this is pretty good. Then I started listening to Tommy Green talking, both in interviews and as a person. And he's such a cool dude. He's such a good person. He's making the music for the right reasons. So I started re-listening to some of it to see like, okay, what's going on here with this Holy Name band. And some of it's starting to kind of grow on me. Kill Switch Engaged. Oh God. The guy next to me loved that stuff, man. Oh my God, it was horrible. Anyways, Under Oath and all these things, these bands, I'm sorry if people in the band, like they would just drive me crazy. But so the point I'm trying to make is, yes, there are some genres I can't listen to and never will, but then sometimes an artist will make me rethink some stuff. And so recently I've been trying to listen to some of that stuff again, like the Holy Name stuff, because I was like, this is pretty good. Like I read his lyrics were really good guy, really liked that stuff. So sometimes that'll happen, and sometimes there's an artist that you really like their music, and they do some jerky stuff, and you can't listen to them anymore. It's not even just because it's not just because like, you don't like the person. It just changes the way you view the music. It just changes the way you view the music. So it's a weird thing how that happens, right? Anyways, my dear friends, thank you guys for joining us today. Getting really tired, so I could tell like what I'm thinking and what I'm saying are two different things. I have far more eloquent things thinking than I'm saying right now. I'm really tired. Really love everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much. It was a good Bored No More day. We started things off right with Christina talking about grandparents, the importance of. Then we had our dear friend Buck Johnson dropped some awesome truth bombs about like what's going on in the news and the media and all of that stuff. Then we had an amazing panel here with our dear friends Post and CYPRN, who joined us in an interesting conversation about music. We'll be doing a lot more of that down the road. Already have a couple of good ideas for that. Anyways, tomorrow is my birthday. And I'm only saying this so that I'm taking it as an opportunity to get as many viewers as possible to join us on tomorrow's stream. So I'm using my birthday as a promotional tool. I don't normally announce that. Don't really care about that. But tomorrow is my birthday. So show up SOS Radio. We're going to be going through some of my old hard drives. Now we're talking about music and the medium and all that stuff. So tomorrow we're going to be listening to some stuff that are on my hard drive. Maybe I'll play some stuff I've never dropped before or released or any of that stuff. Tatiana is reminding us, yes, she's killing it in the Facebook group. If you're not a part of that, go join that. Let's get that rolling. Sorry, I'm really tired now. Can't even think straight. Manny, what do I got? What am I missing? I'm missing stuff. Your mic's off.
Right. We got some of these, a lot of these. Thanks, Girl Hex.
Thank you for all your love and support. Seriously, thank you.
We also got Nadim.
Nads, thank you. Thank you.
2.
2. No, that's 2. This is 4. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got the coughs. Hopefully this is gone by tomorrow. Tomorrow, join us, hang out, come say hello, all that stuff. The episode that I did with Jamie Hanshaw, Jay Dyer's wife, will be dropping this week. Getting through some of the edits. I'm really interested to see how that one goes out there. I noticed she dropped a recent interview that she had done. It was on a similar subject as the one we discussed, and then Jay Dyer and Tristan did one yesterday on like classic, truther docs. That was a lot of the stuff that we talked about with Jamie. I wonder if Jamie mentioned any. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting interview. I'll be dropping that this week. Yes, I really want to get the zine, the physical zine out. I want to start piecing together the second zine and the compilation that we're dropping, which will have mixed genres on it. We have country, we have punk, we have hardcore, sludge, I guess you would call it. We have jungle. CYPRN will probably, I'm going to convince him to put something on there. I think he will. We have posts will be on there. I'm assuming we'll put that out there. Going to see about getting some Father Turbo out there. He jumps a bunch of genres. All right, guys, I'm officially tired. I can see my eyes are droopy. Have yourselves a wonderful, beautiful evening. We will catch you guys tomorrow for Birthday Bash. SOS Radio. See you tomorrow, my dear friends. Have yourselves a great night. I don't know, Manny, you have anything to push buttons on before I cancel? I'll leave it to Manny. Adios.
This is Bobby Biggie. Bobby. You're watching. You're on. Or no more.